Chapter 1579. Shangguan Aojian was confident when he said that. In reality, his father, Jianqin, and Changyang Su's father were brothers. Shangguan Aojian was a few years older than Changyang Su, so it was only natural for him to be Changyang Su's older brother. This was something that could not be doubted. However, the meaning of Shangguan Aojian's words completely changed when they reached Changyang Su's ears. They became a provocation, or even a form of humiliation. Changyang Su was the young master of Changyang Prefecture. His status was great, and coupled with the fact that he had been extremely arrogant since he was young, how could he tolerate Shangguan Aojian's words that were basically a form of humiliation? Suddenly, Changyang Su's entire presence changed. At that moment, he seemed like an unsheathed sword, shining brightly. A powerful presence accompanied him. Of course, this was only in comparison to people of the same age. The presence he gave off as a great Saint Master was not worth mentioning in the Changyang Prefecture that was filled with experts. However, Changyang Su's presence did attract the attention of many people in Changyang Prefecture, but they did not treat it as anything important. In the eyes of the old monsters who had lived for several thousand years, this was just a small quarrel between children. Changyang Ba and Changyang Ku obviously noticed this as well, but they were on the stage right now. Under the gazes of everyone present, they obviously could not interfere with the quarrel between the younger generation. "Sir, what did you just say? Do you dare to say it again?" Changyang Su glared at Shangguan Aojian. He had already locked onto Shangguan Aojian's presence. He seemed like he would start fighting at any moment. Shangguan Aojian stood there leisurely with his arms crossed. His lips curled into a mocking smile, but there was some coldness in his hawk-like eyes. He calmly said, "Brother, you actually dare to threaten your brother. I'm your brother. May I ask what you plan on doing next?" Shangguan Aojian spoke very indifferently, but he gently sighed inside. He had heard about his younger brother long ago. He found him to be extremely impressive for his younger brother to achieve such accomplishments at such a young age. Originally, he still held a sliver of hope for his younger brother whom he had never met before, but after coming to Changyang Prefecture today, Changyang Su's performance time and time again had left him disappointed. "Why, how bold of you! I don't care who you are or where you come from. How dare you cause trouble in our Changyang Prefecture and provoke our Changyang Prefecture? I won't let you off so easily today. The dignity of our Changyang Prefecture cannot be violated." Changyang Su was furious. His face had become extremely sunken as a cold light flickered through it. He had never thought that the young man before him would be so bold. He did not care about his status as the young master of the prefecture at all and dared to step on his head. How could Changyang Su, who had been pampered since he was young, tolerate this? With a flip of his hand, powerful saint force suddenly surged out, quickly condensing into a saint weapon in his right hand. He stabbed it toward Shangguan Aojian mercilessly. Other people in Changyang Prefecture might not have dared to do anything out of fear of Changyang Prefecture's dignity, but Changyang Su was not afraid. This was because the prefecture lord was his grandfather, and his father was about to become the prefecture lord as well. With how much his grandfather and father spoiled him, he was confident that he would not be punished at all, even if he caused any trouble. At most, he would be scolded a little. With the current prestige of Changyang Prefecture, there was nothing that could not be resolved. Moreover, he knew that all the holy emperors in the world still owed his uncle a favor. Even if the young man had the support of a holy emperor, the holy emperors would not dare to say anything. Many of the sainthood experts gathered in the surroundings watched on from the side. None of them planned on interfering because they also felt that Shangguan Aojian had gone a little too far with what he had said. However, there were many people who guessed the identities of Xiaobao's group. They were actually bold enough to provoke the young master of Changyang Prefecture in public and even shamelessly call themselves Changyang Su's elder brother. Although Shangguan Aojian seemed to be slightly older than Changyang Su, he could not just casually call Changyang Su his younger brother. After all, The difference in status between the two of them was just too great. Shangguan Aojian continued to stand there with his arms crossed. He had no intentions of dodging Changyang Su's attack. However, the moment Changyang Su stabbed out, Shangguan Aojian's gaze became even colder. Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu stood there leisurely as well. They looked at Shangguan Aojian and Changyang Su with interest and would gently chuckle from time to time. "Su, don't be rude." When Changyang Su's sword was only 3 inches away from Shangguan Aojian, a dignified voice rang out. At the same time, the space around Changyang Su froze, immobilizing him and his saint weapon. Changyang Su had even used his saint weapon. Changyang Ba could no longer ignore the situation like before, so he interfered to stop Changyang Su. "Grandfather, let go of me. This brat dares to insult me. I have to properly teach him a lesson today, or I won't be able to accept it," Changyang Su called out loudly. Changyang Su said loudly and reluctantly. He did not care at all. His gaze toward Shangguan Aojian was filled with a sense of superiority. "Su, shut up. Today is the day of your father's ascension. As your father's son, you don't properly receive your esteemed guest and instead come into conflict with him. What are you doing? Why don't you apologize to the esteemed guest?" Changyang Ba's face sank and he became stern. "Grandfather, you have no idea. This ignorant person says he's my elder brother. He's basically insulting me. I'd rather die than apologize to someone like that," Changyang Su said indignantly. Changyang Su said angrily before turning his head to the side. He acted like he would rather die than apologize. Changyang Ba felt helpless when he saw how Changyang Su was behaving. As his only grandson, Changyang Su had become the apple of his eye long ago. He had taken good care of him since he was young, so he could not beat him or scold him. If Changyang Su really did become angry, he really would not be able to handle it as his grandfather. With no other choice, Changyang Ba could only clasp his fist toward Shangguan Aojian, Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu. He said rather apologetically, "My friends, I really am sorry. Su is naughty, so it's all our fault for not disciplining him properly. If he has offended you in any way, please forgive him. Oh, right. May I ask where the 3 of you have come from? Once the ceremony is over, I will definitely get Ku to personally come and apologize with great gifts. The patriarch is too polite. I am Xiao Qian from 3 Saint Island. Greetings to the patriarch. I am Xiao Yu from 3 Saint Island. Greetings to the patriarch." Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu both clasped their hands towards Changyang Ba. They were extremely polite. "I am Shangguan Aojian from 3 Saint Island. Greetings to the patriarch." Shangguan Aojian also clasped his hands towards Changyang Ba before bowing deeply. He was not bowing to the patriarch of Changyang Prefecture, but to his grandfather. 3 Saint Island. They're actually from 3 Saint Island. I've heard of Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu. Aren't they the 2nd and 3rd island masters of 3 Saint Island? I never thought that the 2 of them would actually be the 2nd and 3rd island masters of 3 Saint Island. That's quite an impressive identity. It's said that the Heavenly Enchantress is the 1st island master of 3 Saint Island. The 2nd and 3rd island masters are her disciples. Heavens, these 2 women are actually the disciples of sovereigns. No wonder they don't fear Changyang Prefecture. I never thought that even the 2 disciples of a sovereign would come to Changyang's coronation ceremony. As the identities of Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu were revealed, it immediately caused quite a stir in Changyang Prefecture. At that moment, everyone's gazes toward the 3 of them changed. They were filled with envy. All the experts of the 4 races had already learned about 3 Saint Island because the 1st island master, the Heavenly Enchantress, was an Origin Realm expert. Moreover, the Heavenly Enchantress had used her zither to control 5 Origin Realm experts during the battle against the world of Forsaken Saints, which had shocked everyone. In the eyes of sainthood experts, the Origin Realm experts were already sovereigns. They were unreachable. Yet the heavenly enchantress was able to control the minds of 5 sovereigns. It was just too terrifying. Changyangba was surprised as well, but he soon began to laugh aloud. He walked off the stage with Changyangku and personally went to receive them. He smiled. So it's the 2nd and 3rd island masters of Three Saint Island. Please forgive me for not coming out to receive you. Speaking of which, Three Saint Island isn't really an outsider to our Changyang prefecture. I've heard Xiang'er mention Three Saint Island a lot in the past, and Xiang'er seems to have spent some time on Three Saint Island as well. The patriarch is right. Young Master Jianchen really did spend quite some time on Three Saint Island in the past. Xiao Qian giggled. Xiao Qian smiled. She glanced at Shangguanaojian and seemed to be deep in thought. Afterward, she pointed at him and said, Patriarch, this is the young island master of our Three Saint Island. Young island master. Changyangba was surprised once again. He could not help but take a good look at Shangguanaojian. However, a strange feeling appeared in his heart from that glance. Suddenly, he found the young man to be more and more pleasing to the eye. He liked him more and more the more he looked at him. The surrounding guests were all shocked when they learned that Shangguanaojian was the young island master of Three Saint Island. This identity was no small matter. It was on par with Changyang Su's status in Changyang Prefecture. He was most likely the successor of the heavenly enchantress. Everyone understood now. Shangguanaojian was the young island master of Three Saint Island. As the young master of Changyang Prefecture, it was only natural that he was the older brother of Changyang Su. After all, Shangguanaojian's status was no lower than Changyang Su's, and he was clearly a few years older than Changyang Su. The young island master of Three Saint Island is just a title. If it weren't for my grandfather, I would have injured you already, Changyang Su said. He still did not treat Shangguanaojian seriously. Changyangba's face suddenly sank. Just when he was about to reprimand Changyang Su, Shangguanaojian's voice rang out first. Brother, you can't be too proud as a person, nor can you look down on others. You need to know that there is always someone better than you. You may have some accomplishments now, but they were all brought to you by your uncle. Shangguanaojian, even if you're the young island master of Three Saint Island, you have no right to ride on my head. I obviously know that there is always someone better than me. At my age, I am the one who is better than you. I am the one who is better than you. Not to mention that you can't even receive a single strike from me as the young island master. In this world, the weak will never have the right to speak. Changyang Su was extremely conceited. He firmly believed that he would have injured the young island master if it were not for his grandfather. Chapter 1580. A sliver of surprise appeared in Changyang Su's eyes. The young island master before him had actually said that he would just stand there and let him hit him without fighting back. He would lose if he could even touch a hair on the young island master's head. Changyang Su began to doubt whether he had heard wrong. Young island master, may I ask how long you've been cultivating? If you've already cultivated for over 100 years, or even longer, it's only natural that I can't defeat you, Changyang Su said emotionlessly. If the young island master had cultivated for several 100 years, he would indeed not be able to touch a hair on his opponent. After all, he was only 20 years old. Su-er is right. Young island master himself has admitted that he is older than Su-er. The amount of time he has spent cultivating is definitely not something that Su-er can compare to. Even if Su-er were to lose to young island master, it would be a very normal thing. Changyang Su's mother, Xie-Yan, walked over from afar. She smiled, giving off an amiable feeling. As Changyang Ku's father, Xie-Yan had no choice but to put on an expression like this in a public setting. Shangguanaojian sniggered. Brother, I may be older than you, but I'm only 3 or 4 years older than you. If you think that's unfair, how about this? I'll stand here without dodging, nor will I do anything to defend or block. You can display your full strength to Kea, including the battle skills you've comprehended. If you can even scratch a layer of my skin, I'll lose. How about that? Changyang Su immediately stopped worrying when he heard Shangguan Aojian's age. However, his face became very ugly when he heard what Shangguan Aojian said at the end. He coldly said, "You sure are arrogant. Do you really think your body is made of steel? Even if it's made of steel, it's no different from mud before me. However, since you're so confident, I'll keep you company today. However, I think that if we add a little wager to the battle today, it might be even more interesting." Changyang Su smiled mysteriously towards end. "A wager?" Shangguan Aojian murmured softly. He could not help but smile strangely sure. "I wonder what you'll be able to offer." With a flip of his hand, 5 wooden boxes appeared in Changyang Su's hand. He said, "I'll bet 5 10,000-year-old heavenly resources. If you win, they'll be yours. If you lose, I want you to leave behind all the cultivation methods and battle skills on the island." When the surrounding people heard Changyang Su's wager, they immediately burst into laughter. 5 10,000-year-old heavenly resources were very valuable, but they were not rare. They could even be bought for purple coins in some large auctions on the Tianyuan continent. On the other hand, the cultivation methods and battle skills of 3 Saint Island were truly priceless. Even the Holy Emperor would covet them. Almost everyone was certain that the young island master would not agree to Changyang Su's ridiculous request. Moreover, he had blocked it in an extremely unfair manner. You want to use 5 10,000-year-old heavenly resources to exchange for all the cultivation methods and battle skills on the island? That's a pretty good idea. However, I'll agree to it, Shangguan Aojian chuckled aloud. The surrounding sainthood experts all became stunned when they saw that Shangguan Aojian had actually agreed. Disbelief filled their faces. At that moment, none of them knew what to say. They really had no idea whether the young island master was just too arrogant or he really was that powerful. A few people had even begun to peek at Shangguan Aojian's strength. However, Shangguan Aojian possessed the innate chaotic body, so his cultivation system was completely different from the Tianyuan continents. Coupled with the fact that he was stronger than most of the people present, even the Holy Emperor was unable to tell Shangguan Aojian's exact strength. At this moment, Shangguan Aojian took out an extremely crude wooden box from his space ring at a steady pace. He said, "Brother, if you really win, not only will I agree to your request, but I'll even give this to you. If you lose, I don't want your heavenly resources, but you have to call me brother in front of everyone here." As he said that, Shangguan Aojian opened the wooden box. Immediately, a fist-sized violet peach appeared before everyone's eyes. All the sainthood experts present held their breaths when they saw the peach. They all widened their eyes in shock. Afterwards, many of their eyes began to burn with desire. There was a sliver of extremely well-hidden greed in their eyes. A violet cloud peach. It's actually a violet cloud peach. A single violet cloud peach is enough for the Holy Emperor to break through to Holy Emperor. The young island master is actually using a violet cloud peach as a wager. What a waste! Aside from Sovereign Jianqin, there's no one else in the world who can take out a violet cloud peach. It's a supreme treasure. Every single one of them is priceless. Young island master, how can you use something so valuable as a wager? You're far too impulsive. The appearance of the violet cloud peach immediately ignited the crowd like a barrel of gunpowder. It led to an uproar. Very few people could remain calm before the violet cloud peach. At the same time, a few people looked at Shangguan Aojian sternly after calming down. Not only did the young island master possess a violet cloud peach, but the second and third island masters did not stop him when he took it out as a wager. All of this clearly demonstrated that the 2 island masters were not afraid of losing Shangguan Aojian's violet cloud peach at all. Perhaps they did not believe that Shangguan Aojian would lose. "Suwa has already lost," thought Jianqin. Changyangba thought. He already knew the outcome of the battle even before it began. He even believed that the young island master had ingested a violet cloud peach. However, Changyang-su failed to notice this problem. He stared at the violet cloud peach in Shangguan Aojian's hand, and his eyes became red. He knew that the violet cloud peach came from his uncle, but as the young master of the Changyang clan, he had never even seen the legendary violet cloud peach, even though he had ingested many heavenly resources over the years, let alone obtain one. This was because even his grandfather did not have a second violet cloud peach. I have to win this battle. I have to win no matter what the price is. I have to obtain the violet cloud peach, thought Changyang-su. Changyang-su roared inside. The violet cloud peach was the only shortcut to sainthood. If he could obtain it, he would become an expert before long. Changyang-su immediately moved. He wielded his saint weapon and aggressively charged toward Shangguan Aojian as a blur. His saint weapon was also a sword that was 2 fingers wide. It was wrapped in a layer of wind-attributed saint force. He stabbed it toward Shangguan Aojian's chest as quickly as he could. Shangguan Aojian smiled playfully. He stood there without dodging, nor did he use any energy to defend himself. He was like a live target. Chapter 1581. That's impossible. How can your body be so tough? It's even tougher than the bodies of high-class magical beasts. Changyang-su stared at Shangguan Aojian in shock. Disbelief flooded his face. At that moment, he even began to suspect that Shangguan Aojian was actually a high-class magical beast in human form. Otherwise, how was he supposed to explain this result? Although Changyang-su was only a great saint master, he had come into contact with sainthood experts since he was born in Changyang Prefecture. At the same time, he gained a vague understanding of the strength of sainthood experts. However, in his understanding, even saint rulers would not be able to endure a full-powered strike from him without using saint force. Even the Holy Emperor would not be able to do so. Only magical beasts possessed such tough bodies. What a tough body! Aside from magical beasts, probably only Sovereign Jianqin possesses a body like that, an old man from the crowd said. His voice was filled with amazement. The old man's strength had reached the level of the Holy Emperor. I may not be able to see through the young island master's true strength, but I can tell that his strength has definitely exceeded all of our expectations. He really is from 3 Saint Island after all. He's only 23, yet he possesses such great strength. He's no weaker than Sovereign Jianqin in the past, said a middle-aged man. He was the ancestor of an ancient clan. His strength had reached the 9th heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor. The young island master is indeed a genius, but in Old Man's opinion, there's still a very large difference between the young island master and Sovereign Jianqin in the past. After all, Sovereign Jianqin relied on his own efforts to raise his strength step by step, unlike the young island master of 3 Saint Island and the young master of Changyang Prefecture. The reason why their strength has increased so quickly is because of the assistance of their clans. At the same time, the young island master has probably consumed a violet cloud peach as well, a ruddy old man said nonchalantly. Many of the human sainthood experts in the surroundings clasped their fists when they saw the old man. Their faces were filled with respect. The old man was the holy emperor of the Peng clan, Psangqiong. Unlike the others, Psangqiong had become a holy emperor completely through his own efforts, unlike the other holy emperors who had basically all consumed a violet cloud peach. Later on, Psangqiong had consumed a violet cloud peach as well, so his current strength had reached the 9th heavenly layer of the holy emperor. There were only a few experts who had reached the 9th heavenly layer of the holy emperor among the 4 races. Aside from the holy emperor of the Peng clan and the hall master of the Poseidon Hall, there were only Ada and his brothers. Now that the seal that prevented them from reaching the origin realm had vanished, the 6-peak holy emperor experts had the potential to become sovereigns in the future. Brother, do you concede or not? Shangguan Aojian calmly asked as he stood there with his arms crossed. Changyang-su snorted coldly. Even if you're the young island master of 3 Saint Island, you still don't have the right to ride on my head. I'd like to see if you can remain unscathed before my Earth Tier battle skill." With that, Chanyang Su bellowed out. All the saint force within him surged out, causing him to become enveloped in a dense layer of azure light. This was the light of wind-attributed saint force. As the Earth Tier battle skill was used, a wild gale swept through the entire Chanyang prefecture. Sand and pebbles were kicked into the air as dust filled the air. At this moment, Chanyangbao casually waved his right hand. With that, all the sand and dust that had been kicked into the air vanished. He looked at Chanyang Su and nodded in satisfaction. He thought, not bad. I never thought that Su would have comprehended a high Earth Tier battle skill to such a level. Wind Shadow Strike. After charging up for a while, Chanyang Su finally completely used his Earth Tier battle skill. He seemed to have fused with the wind as he shot toward Shangguan Aojian with lightning-like speed that completely exceeded what great Saint Masters should possess. The wind-attributed Saint force on his Saint weapon had been compressed to the limit. Bang! With a heavy sound, Chanyang Su's Earth Tier battle skill landed firmly on Shangguan Aojian. It erupted with quite a powerful pulse of energy. Chanyang Su was clearly unable to endure the pulse of energy as a great Saint Master. He was constantly pushed back as his face became rather pale. Clearly, using a high Earth Tier battle skill was not easy for him. However, Chanyang Su did not care about himself at all. He stared fixedly at Shangguan Aojian as his eyes were filled with eagerness. He hoped that Shangguan Aojian would be injured by his attack. As long as he was injured, even if it was just a tiny bit, he would win according to their agreement. The violet cloud peach would become his spoils. However, in the next moment, Chanyang Su became stunned. Disbelief filled his eyes. Shangguan Aojian remained unscathed after enduring his full-powered Earth Tier battle skill with his body. Even when Chanyang Su used his most powerful battle prowess, he was unable to leave a single mark on Shangguan Aojian. Impossible, this is impossible. You cheated. You must have cheated. Chanyang Su cried out rather crazily. He was unable to accept this reality. The young island master was only 3 or 4 years older than him. Yet he actually possessed such terrifying strength. He was unable to do anything to Shangguan Aojian with just his body. This was an extremely heavy blow to the arrogant Chanyang Su. A violet cloud peach. Yes, a violet cloud peach. You must have eaten a violet cloud peach, which is why you possess such strength. This isn't fair. If I had a violet cloud peach, you definitely wouldn't be my opponent, Chanyang Su loudly called out. Chanyang Su called out. At that moment, he suddenly felt envious. He was so envious that his eyes had almost turned red. At the same time, he became more and more dissatisfied with his uncle. He thought, Uncle is far too biased. He'd rather give the violet cloud peach to an outsider than leave one for me. Shangguan Aojian, there's nothing for you to be proud of. You may have defeated me, but you only increased your strength because of the violet cloud peach. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been my opponent. Chanyang Su refused to accept this. Even now, he was still extremely arrogant and did not know how to restrain himself. Shangguan Aojian did not become angered. He said, Brother, why don't you think about it? If it weren't for the fact that you have a clan supporting you with everything they have, would you still be able to reach your current accomplishments? If all the resources used on you were given to someone else, they would be able to reach your current accomplishments at your age. I admit that I can't reach my current level without the violet cloud peach and various heavenly resources, but aren't you the same? There's nothing to be proud of. Chapter 1582. The young island master is right. Su! You've been too proud and complacent all these years. Look at the young island master. He possesses such strength at such a young age, yet he has always kept it a secret. No one knows about it, and he treats fame and fortune like dirt. If it weren't for what happened in the manor today, I think the young island master's strength would have continued to be hidden. You should learn more from the young island master. No matter how brilliant and dazzling your achievements are, you shouldn't be arrogant and complacent. Just like what the young island master said earlier, there will always be someone better, and there will always be someone better. You must remember this in your heart. Changyangba walked over and gently spoke to Changyang-su before turning his head to Shangguan Aojin. His eyes were filled with undisguised admiration. I seem to see Xianger's shadow in the past on the young island master. Xianger liked to hide himself very much when he was young. He never showed off his talent. Afterwards, he made a mistake during the Saint Force test, mistaking Xianger as a cripple who couldn't cultivate Saint Force. Xianger could have explained himself back then, but he didn't. He didn't care what others thought of him at all. Instead, he quietly stayed in the clan and cultivated. Only when he clashed with a worker in the kitchen did Xianger reveal his strength. The thing that I, Changyangba, am most proud of is having a child like Xianger. The reason why our Changyang prefecture is as glorious as it is today is all because of Xianger. If it weren't for Xianger, there would be no Changyang prefecture today. Changyangba could not help but sigh emotionally. In particular, Changyangba felt a strange fondness for Jianqin when he looked at Shangguan Aojin's face that made him feel extremely close to him. This was because he truly saw a shadow of Jianqin's past on Shangguan Aojin. Shangguan Aojin said nothing. He focused on listening to Changyangba talk about Jianqin's past. It was as if as long as it was related to Jianqin, he would be extremely interested, regardless of how important or minor the matter was. He did not want to miss out on a single word. The only pity was that Changyangba only spoke about Jianqin's childhood. What happened after that? Shangguan Aojin could not help but ask when he saw that Changyangba had no intentions of continuing. Changyangba smiled at Xianger and said, "The young island master seems to be very interested in some of Xianger's past." Shangguan Aojin nodded and did not deny it. "Whatever. I feel like old friends with the young island master at first sight. Since the young island master is so interested in Xianger's past, why don't you stay in the clan for a few more days after the ceremony is over?" Changyangba chuckled. He discovered that he liked the young island master of 3 Saint Island more and more. "Then the two of us will have to trouble you for a few more days," Shangguan Aojin happily agreed. Although he had yet to reunite with Changyangba, Changyang Prefecture was also his home in his heart. At the same time, he had an extremely good impression of his grandfather whom he had met for the first time. "Oh, right. I've also prepared a small gift for the patriarch and 4th madam," Shangguan Aojin continued. 2 beautiful, embroidered boxes appeared in his hands. The boxes were completely forged from violet gold. They shone with violet light, making them seem noble and grand. Just the 2 boxes alone were worth quite a lot. When Shangguan Aojin mentioned the patriarch, he also mentioned the 4th madam. Everyone understood that he was referring to the previous patriarch and not the new patriarch, Changyangba, because only Changyangba had a 4th madam. Changyangba happily accepted the 2 boxes from Shangguan Aojin. For some reason, he felt even happier when he received the gifts from Shangguan Aojin than when he received 100,000-year-old heavenly resources from other experts. Even though he had no idea what was in the boxes, this was the first time he had felt this way during a ceremony like this. The items in the boxes no longer seemed as important. Changyangba did not plan on opening the boxes either. He passed them to his followers. "The gifts from our young island master are extraordinary. Don't you plan on taking a look, patriarch?" At this moment, Xiao Qian spoke up from beside Shangguan Aojin. Xiao Qian was one of the 3 island masters of 3 Saint Island, and her master was a sovereign. Even she had said that the gifts were extraordinary, which immediately piqued the curiosity of many of the guests. Some of the people who were on good terms with Changyangba even urged him to open the boxes eagerly so that everyone could take a look. Whatever. Since everyone is so interested, let's take a look at what the young island master's gifts are. Changyangba said straightforwardly. He smiled amiably as he directly picked up one of the boxes from his followers and slowly opened it. During this process, all the guests in the surroundings held their breaths and stared at the box. Very soon, the box was opened, and a faint fragrance immediately wafted out. Taking a whiff, everyone's minds immediately shuddered. In that moment, they felt like their minds had become extremely light, and their souls seemed to have grown slightly. The mysteries of the world that had remained at their current level of cultivation for a long time seemed to become clearer in that moment, and they seemed to be on the verge of breaking through. This phenomenon immediately shocked everyone. Everyone stared at the brocade box without blinking. Just the fragrance it emitted had such an inconceivable effect. This made everyone very curious about what kind of treasure was inside the brocade box. Inside the brocade box, there was a perfume pouch. The smell of sharing was coming from this perfume pouch. The young island master's gift is just too valuable. Changyangba sighed in amazement. Just a whiff of the fragrance was enough for everyone to understand the value of the pouch. It was definitely more valuable than any gift from any organization. Our young island master personally created this pouch. He used the powder of many heavenly resources. There are 1,200,000-year-old heavenly resources among them. Xiaoyu said, "What? He used 1,200,000-year-old heavenly resources to create a pouch? The island master of 3 Saint Island Shire is wealthy. Even among peak organizations, 100,000-year-old heavenly resources are rare treasures. Yet the young island master has taken out 12 of them to create a pouch. How are those peak organizations supposed to accept this?" The surrounding guests were all stunned by Xiaoyu's words. The young island master of 3 Saint Island could no longer be described as wealthy. Xiaoyu giggled when she heard the exclamations in the surroundings. She continued, "And in this pouch, the 100,000-year-old heavenly resources are only medium quality. I won't introduce the high-quality heavenly resources because treasures at that level have already exceeded our understanding. Even we don't know their names." "What? Even the 100,000-year-old heavenly resources are only medium quality? Heavens, is this really a pouch?" Including Changyangba, everyone became dumbfounded. Disbelief filled their faces. Shangguan Aojin smiled when he saw everyone's reactions. He nonchalantly said, "I spent 3 years to create this pouch. Not only can it calm the mind and eliminate inner demons if you carry it with you, but it can also help with cultivation and comprehension of the mysteries of the world. Even radiant saint masters are no exception. This is a small gift I've specially prepared for the 4th madam." Changyangba stared at the pouch in a daze. The young island master had actually given something so precious to Bai Yintian. He had no idea what to say because the gift was just too valuable. "Humph, you make it sound so nice. Who knows if you're telling the truth?" Changyang Su murmured in a voice that only he could hear. He was extremely jealous of the young island master. He was the mighty young master of Changyang Prefecture. Although he had ingested a few 10,000-year-old heavenly resources, he had never even touched or seen a 100,000-year-old heavenly resource before. However, the young island master had actually used 12 of them to create a pouch. "Patriarch, the 2nd box was specially prepared for you by our young island master," Xiaoyu said again, reminding Changyangba to open the 2nd box. Changyangba sucked in a deep breath and slowly closed the box. At this moment, he discovered that his hands had actually begun to tremble slightly. 12 10,000-year-old heavenly resources had been ground into powder to create a pouch, and it was only medium quality among the materials used to create the pouch. Such a luxurious item was probably the only one in the world. Uncle Chang arrived beside Changyangba. Changyangba passed the gift box in his hand to Uncle Chang for safekeeping before carefully opening the 2nd gift box in the hands of an attendant. Chapter 1583. The young island master sure is extravagant. Just the gift he's given to the fourth madam is made from over a dozen 100,000-year-old heavenly resources, as well as a few items that are even more valuable. Their value is unimaginable. I really wonder what the young island master's gift to the patriarch will be. I believe that the value of the present that the young island lord is giving to the manor lord is definitely above the value of the first present. Just look at the expressions of the young island lord, the second island lord, and the third island lord. I really don't know what the second present will be. Many of the esteemed guests gathered in Changyang Prefecture began to whisper among themselves. They began to discuss, excitedly. It could be said that just the value of the first gift from Shangguan Aojin had far exceeded what all the peak organizations present could accept. Naturally, everyone paid close attention to the second gift. Finally, Changyang Ba opened the second box under everyone's anticipation. Immediately, a fist-sized violet peach appeared before everyone's eyes. It was a violet cloud peach. The second box did not only contain the violet cloud peach. Beside it was a palm-sized leaf. Aside from that, there were 3 faintly earthen yellow crystals that radiated with pure and surging energy from time to time. It's a violet cloud peach and a comprehension tea leaf. No, this violet cloud peach is clearly different from the one the young island master took out earlier. Not only is this one slightly larger, but its color is much deeper as well. It's clearly better than the one before. The young island master actually has 2 violet cloud peaches on him. Heavens! That's enough to make everyone jealous. Violet cloud peaches are so precious that even I only ate a small piece in the past. Obtaining a complete violet cloud peach is a luxury. Yet the young island master has actually taken out 2 today. The heavenly enchantress sure spoils the young island master. Aside from Sovereign Gentian, no one else in the world possesses a violet cloud peach. I think the young island master's violet cloud peach came from Sovereign Gentian. At that moment, over half of the sainthood experts gathered there looked at Shangguan Aojin with extremely well-hidden jealousy. The violet cloud peach was a treasure that even saint emperors desired. Even Origin Realm experts could not resist the temptation of the violet cloud peach, let alone saint emperors. This was because a single peach was equivalent to several hundred or even several thousand years of cultivation. It was the only treasure that could drastically increase a person's strength in the shortest amount of time possible. Many of the people present did not even have the right to use one. Yet Shangguan Aojin had taken out 2. This immediately caused everyone's eyes to turn red with envy. Changyang Su, in particular, immediately became extremely jealous when he saw Shangguan Aojin take out 2 violet cloud peaches and comprehension tea leaves. At the same time, he became more and more dissatisfied with his uncle. Uncle Shore is biased. The young island master of 3 Saint Island is not related to him at all. Yet he actually gave him so many violet cloud peaches and comprehension tea leaves. What about me? I didn't get a single thing, said Jianchen. Changyang Su glared at Shangguan Aojin as if he was about to spit fire. Only now did he suddenly feel like he really was a clown before the young island master of 3 Saint Island. In the past few years, he had always been proud of his ability to use 10,000-year-old heavenly resources as he wished, as well as the various battle skills of his clan. His strength and talent made him a peerless genius as well, reaching Great Saint Master at the age of 20. With the entire world in perspective, the number of people who could achieve this at his age could be counted on one hand. There might not even be someone like him. Only when the young island master appeared did he suddenly realize that the things he had been so proud of were nothing before the young island master. It's Uncle. It's all Uncle's fault. Changyang Su placed all the blame on Jianchen. He did not believe that he was any worse than Shangguan Aojin because he was the young master of Changyang Prefecture. His status was great, and he had grown accustomed to his superiority over others. He would never allow himself to be defeated. I think everyone is familiar with the violet cloud peaches and comprehension tea leaves. As for the 3 crystals, I'm sure many of you haven't seen them before. Any one of the 3 crystals is equivalent to a Class 9 monster core, and they're even better than Class 9 monster cores. This is a small gift from me to the Patriarch. If the Patriarch uses the 3 crystals to cultivate, his strength will increase drastically in a short amount of time. After a few decades, you'll definitely become a holy emperor if you consume the violet cloud peaches, Shangguanaojin said loudly. Good, good, good. I'll accept the young island master's great gift. Ha ha ha, this is the most valuable gift I've ever received. Changyangba laughed aloud. He did not act pretentious, closing the box and passing it to Changbo. At the same time, Changyangsu's eyes lit up. He stared at the box with the violet cloud peaches and made up his mind. He would go ask his grandfather for the violet cloud peaches after the ceremony. He refused to believe that he would lose to the young island master after consuming the violet cloud peaches. Shangguanaojin sensed Changyangsu's gaze and snickered inside. He walked over and said, "Brother, you have to accept your loss. You still owe me a brother." Changyangsu's face sank. He coldly stared at Shangguanaojin and coldly said, "You only defeated me because you consumed the violet cloud peaches. The battle before was not fair at all. I refuse to accept this. I will challenge you again in half a year." "All right, then I'll wait for your challenge in half a year." Shangguanaojin did not take it to heart at all. He turned around and left with that, but after taking a few steps, he seemed to think of something. He looked back at Changyangsu and snickered. "Brother, you're probably waiting for your uncle to return and give you the violet cloud peaches, right? I'd advise you to give up on that. If you don't change your attitude, your uncle will never nurture you because he doesn't like wastrels." Changyangba glanced at Shangguanaojin deeply when he heard what Shangguanaojin had said. He obviously understood that Shangguanaojin's words were directed at Changyangsu on the surface, but he was secretly directed at himself. However, Changyangba did not say anything. After witnessing the young island master's performance today, he clearly understood that his only grandson, Changyangsu, did indeed have a lot of areas that needed to be corrected. Shangguanaojin stayed in Changyang Prefecture for a few days. Because he was the young island master of 3 Saint Island and the 2nd and 3rd island masters were by his side, he possessed a very great status in Changyang Prefecture. Even a few seniors from the zoo branch had personally come to see the young island master. Shangguanaojin was very courteous. He even treated the servants of Changyang Prefecture very politely. When he met a few senior figures, he would greet them without putting on any airs at all, which made everyone in Changyang Prefecture like him very much. Bai Yuntian, in particular, treated Shangguanaojin like her own son. She was extremely fond of him. Shangguanaojin's identity as Genshin's son had not been exposed, so everyone in Changyang Prefecture was still in the dark. He only referred to himself as the young island master of 3 Saint Island. Shangguanaojin had learnt a lot about his father's past from Bai Yuntian during his stay in the Changyang clan. Of course, no one else knew about these matters. A few days later, Shangguanaojin bid farewell to Changyangba and Bai Yuntian. He left Changyang Prefecture with his 2 sisters in an extremely low-key manner. "Xiao Bao, where are you going next?" Xiao Qian asked Shangguanaojin as they walked along a bustling street in Lore City. Chapter 1584. In the easternmost part of the wasteland continent, 100,000 kilometers from the elven forest where the elves resided, there was an extremely huge and majestic tomb. The tomb was snow white. It was completely constructed from scorching sun essence gold. Scorching sun essence gold was a mineral unique to the wasteland continent. It was formed from ordinary rocks that had absorbed the power of the sun over countless years in a dry environment. It was extremely valuable on the wasteland continent, even more valuable than tungsten alloy on the Tianyuan continent. Scorching sun essence gold was extremely tough. It was basically impossible to damage it without the strength of a saint ruler. On the wasteland continent, the scorching sun essence gold was a resource that was only controlled by large clans and organizations because not only could it be used to forge weapons of very high quality, but it also contained some force of the sun. If one grasped a special secret technique, they could refine the force of the sun within the scorching sun essence gold for cultivation. However, even in the hands of the peak organizations on the wasteland continent, they did not possess a lot of scorching sun essence gold. However, the colossal tomb before them was actually completely made of scorching sun essence gold. It seemed to be a perfect whole, and there were no cracks or marks left behind when it was constructed. Without the strength of a saint ruler, it was impossible to destroy the essence metal of the sun. However, the tomb constructed from the essence metal of the sun was actually a single piece. Ignoring the value of the tomb itself, just the construction of the tomb was no easy matter. Especially from the traces, it was obvious that this mausoleum had existed for a very long time. Even though the mausoleum was clean and spotless, the traces left behind by the passage of countless years could not be covered up. The extremely luxurious tomb had already existed for a very long time. Not only was there no one who dared to covet it, but it was even worshipped by the various races of the wasteland continent every day. There were even many experts like the Holy Emperor among them, causing the tomb to become a supreme, sacred ground where no one dared to desecrate it. This was because this was the tomb of the war god of the 100 races, Aruejin. Even though Aruejin had died in battle many years ago, he still lived on in the hearts of all the people of the 100 races. At the same time, Aruejin's remains had been sealed here by the winged tiger. Below the tomb was where the powerful seal was. Before Ergin's mausoleum, many people would come to kneel, pray, and clean the mausoleum every day. Today was naturally no exception. Over 10,000 people had already knelt before the mausoleum. However, at this moment, the ground began to gently tremble. It was as if the entire continent of the 100 races was shaking. Even the mausoleum made from the essence of the sun shook. At the same time, a tremendous presence radiated from the depths of the mausoleum. The strength of the aura caused the world to tremble. In an instant, the entire wasteland continent was enveloped by the incomparably huge aura. Wind and clouds surged in the sky above the wasteland continent. Under the pressure of the aura, the thick clouds that had accumulated above the wasteland continent rapidly dispersed, disappearing without a trace. Afterwards, the tremendous presence actually expanded beyond the wasteland continent. In a short amount of time, it enveloped the Tianyuan continent, the beast god continent, the sea realm, the Arctic tundra, and finally the entire world. It shocked everyone. The Origin realm experts in the supreme divine hall of Mercenary City all looked in the direction of the 100 races as joy filled their faces. "It's Taita. He's broken through," said Feng Xiaotian as he smiled faintly. "Fantastic. Our Tianyuan continent has become a little stronger now," said Jian Qin. Taita had been gone for 3 years. Now that he had finally emerged from seclusion, the Origin realm experts who watched over the divine hall became much more at ease. Space gates appeared one after another outside Ruejin's tomb on the wasteland continent. Many holy emperors and holy emperors hurried over as soon as possible. Not only were there people from the 100 races, but there were even quite a few holy emperors and holy emperors from magical beasts and humans. In the past, outsiders who came to the sacred land of the 100 races would definitely be rejected by all the experts of the 100 races. But now, the 4 races were united in battle. They had completely cast aside the concept of territory. As a result, the experts of the 100 races welcomed the arrival of humans and magical beasts. It's the war god. The war god has emerged. Many experts of the 100 races who had hurried over all cried out outside the tomb. Their faces were filled with joy. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell with a single glance that the war god's strength had definitely skyrocketed. Every one of the 100 races viewed the war god as their spiritual leader, so they were obviously overjoyed by the increase in the war god's strength. The war god has vanished for 3 years. He's finally reappeared. In the past 3 years, the war god of the 100 clans must have received Ergin's legacy in the tomb. I wonder what realm the war god of the 100 clan strength will reach after coming out of seclusion this time. The human sovereign has already vanished for 3 years. There's been no news of him at all. If the human sovereign's strength hasn't increased during those 3 years, he probably won't be the war god's opponent anymore. The war god and the winged tiger have a feud, now that the war god's strength has increased. While the winged tiger only reached the origin realm 3 years ago because he obtained the beast god's legacy. He has been guarding the supreme divine hall for the past 3 years, so his strength has not increased at all. In this era, the winged tiger probably won't be the war god's opponent anymore. The light in the eyes of many people among the humans and magical beasts flickered. They thought of many things in a single moment. The war god's strength had increased, which would increase the status of the 100 races without a doubt. At this moment, the terrifying aura that made the heavens and earth tremble suddenly disappeared. A dazzling golden light appeared in front of the mausoleum out of thin air. It looked like a small golden sun, blooming with boundless light. Through the golden light, one could vaguely see a blurry figure inside. It was Taita. We welcome the war god's emergence from seclusion. All the people of the 100 races knelt down together. Their voices were filled with excitement and joy. Although the humans and magical beasts did not kneel, they still bowed towards Taita politely. There's no need to be so courteous. I need to go to the Divine Hall in Mercenary City immediately, so I'll be going first, Taita said with a deep voice. Taita said to everyone in a low, muffled voice. As soon as he finished speaking, he used his sky battling profound and used his body to break through space. He went straight to the Supreme Divine Palace. In the Supreme Divine Hall, the golden light around Taita had already vanished. Taita stood in the Supreme Divine Hall with a beast hide in his hand. His skin was as dazzling as gold, and there was even a faint glow of calculation on the surface of his skin. Tianjin, the white tiger, Xiaoling, Xiaojin, Poseidon, Yanglai, and so on all stared at Taita and carefully studied him. However, without any exception, none of them could sense just what level of strength Taita had reached. Taita, are you at receival or returnance right now? Poseidon asked. Chapter 1585. Taita handed over the divine beast skin in his hand. His gaze slowly swept over everyone, and from time to time he would look at the divine beast skin in his hand. The divine beast skin was clearly much larger than the divine beast skin in his hand. His expression was a little strange, and there was also some confusion and bewilderment. It was as if the secret hidden within the beast fur had left Taita extremely surprised. There were many things that he did not understand. The Origin Realm experts present all looked at the beast fur. Even though they could tell that the secret hidden within the beast fur was rather extraordinary from Taita's expression, none of them reached out to take it first. What's the secret hidden inside? Let me have a look. In the end, it was Xiaoling who moved first. As a child, she obviously would not follow the rules. Her bright eyes were filled with interest and curiosity as she grabbed the beast fur from Taita's hand. She unfurled the beast fur with her small hands, but she discovered that there was nothing on the snow-white beast fur. There was only a warm and gentle feeling that reached her heart through her small hands. This immediately made Xiaoling pause. She flipped through the beast fur several times as doubt gradually appeared on her face. However, as soon as this doubt appeared, Xiaoling seemed to realize something. A gleam of light flashed through her eyes, and she said, I understand. You need the senses of the soul to see the secret hidden inside. Hee. Xiaoling giggled before extending the senses of her soul into the beast fur with curiosity. Everyone's gazes gathered on Xiaoling at that moment. The secret hidden within the beast fur had actually made Taita reveal such an expression. This had already raised everyone's curiosity, but no one checked it first. However, in just a few seconds after Xiaoling's soul entered the beast fur, her face suddenly changed. Her small body could not help but tremble, and tears began to gather in her eyes. They rolled down in front of her eyes as crystalline tears. She became very sad. Sob, sob, sob. Master, master, where are you? Don't abandon Xiaoling. Xiaoling misses you so much. Master, where are you? To everyone's surprise, Xiaoling suddenly began to cry after her senses entered the beast fur. She was extremely sad, and tears began to flow from her eyes like a fountain. They rolled down Xiaoling's cute and childish face, producing clear splashes as they fell to the ground. Xiaoling's tears did not stop as she sobbed. At that moment, she went from a happy little girl to an orphan who had been abandoned by her parents. She became very sad and filled with helplessness. Sky Sword, Sea Goddess, Houston, Yang Lai, Feng Xiaotian, Guihai Yidao, Tai Ta, and the others all looked at each other. All of them were left speechless. However, Xiaoling had revealed her true feelings, allowing everyone to sense her current feelings. For a moment, everyone felt pity for her. At the same time, everyone became even more curious about the secrets hidden within the beast fur. Sister Xiaoling, don't cry. You still have me. I'm your little brother, Xiao Jin. Xiao Jin, who was less than a meter tall, held Xiaoling's hand as he spoke. Although it had been 3 years, Xiao Jin had not changed at all. He still seemed the same as before. He was still a child of 3 or 4, innocent and cute. As Xiao Jin said that, he snatched the beast fur from Xiaoling's hand. He did not care about the secrets hidden within the beast fur, so he casually shoved it into Houston's arms. In Xiao Jin's opinion, Xiaoling had suddenly become sad after seeing the beast fur, so he naturally would not let the beast fur remain in Xiaoling's hands. When the little white tiger saw Xiaoling's sorrowful appearance, it seemed to think of its father, whom it had never seen before. There was an indescribable sorrow on its face as it silently stood there without saying a word. In the past 3 years, the white tiger had always maintained this expression. He remained silent and rarely spoke. He seemed to be filled with coldness. Similarly, his face did not change in the slightest. He maintained the appearance of an 8 or 9-year-old, and his hair was snow white. However, there was not the slightest trace of childishness on the little white tiger's face. There was an additional resoluteness and coldness that did not match his age. He looked like a warrior who had experienced war and was extremely valiant. As the beast fur landed in Houston's hands, everyone immediately looked at Houston. Noticing everyone's gazes, Houston pondered for a while before tossing the 2 beast furs into the air. They were trapped there by an invisible force, preventing them from falling to the ground. Since everyone is so curious about the secrets hidden in there, why don't we all take a look together? Houston said to everyone, aside from Tai Ta, Xiao Jin, and Xiaoling, everyone else sent the senses of their souls into the beast fur. Even Tianjian was no exception. He released the senses of his soul as well, prying into the mysteries hidden within. There was another universe inside the divine beast skin. It was as if there was a whole world hidden inside. When everyone's divine sense entered the divine beast skin, what appeared in front of them was a vast starry sky. Stars were densely distributed in this starry sky. They were glittering with bright starlight. The Origin Realm experts were immediately stunned by this sight. None of them had thought that such a small piece of fur would hide a world like this. What shocked them even more was that they could sense extremely complete laws in the region of outer space. These laws were something that the current world did not possess. At the same time, they could clearly sense that although the laws of the world were extremely complete, they seemed to be lacking something compared to the laws of the outside world. As a result, the extremely realistic cosmos seemed rather incomplete. Slaughter, the ruler of all life, standing above all life, stepping on the fate of all life. My way is the way of slaughter. At this moment, an obscure voice rang out from nowhere. It reverberated through everyone's minds like a great bell. As the voice rang out, the vast cosmos seemed to shake. Countless stars flickered, brightening and dimming as if they had come alive. With that, a white-robed man silently appeared before everyone. His white robes and long hair danced in the wind. He had his back to everyone, so no one could see his face clearly. His body was filled with an inexplicable aura of the Great Path. It was as if he had merged with the world and the Great Path. It was as if his entire being was this world. In other words, this world was formed by this person. Chapter 1586. It doesn't matter who you are. You're fated to be able to come here. This space is created by my abilities. I use a strand of the origin of slaughter to create laws. Those who comprehend laws will become my disciples in name, from the day you comprehend them. At this moment, the man in white moved. He took a step forward, and the stars around him immediately changed. The river of stars rolled in reverse. He crossed an unknown distance with this step. It was as if he had arrived at the other end of the universe. He appeared in front of a huge star. He slowly raised his hand and used a finger to draw a line towards the star. With that, the entire universe shook violently. A supreme power that seemed to originate from the world rapidly gathered. The power was filled with ruthlessness and destruction. It was as if everything in the world would wither away before the power. As the white-robed man slashed down with his finger, the supreme power also slashed towards the star in front of him. Without a sound, the star in front of him was cut into two halves. Immediately afterwards, the white-clothed man grabbed at the star that had shattered into two. The countless plants on the star seemed to have lost all their vitality in an instant, turning into a pile of ash. Then, even the star turned into dust under the white-clothed man's claw, turning into dust that drifted through the universe. Even though it was only an illusion, all the Origin Realm experts present were extremely shocked when they personally witnessed this. The white-robed man's strength had completely exceeded their imaginations. The planet before them was even larger than the planet they resided on, yet the white-robed man had cleaved it in half with a single stroke. After grabbing at it, the entire planet had been reduced to dust. Just how powerful was he to achieve something like that? At that moment, their shock had reached its limit. Even Yang Lai, Gui Haidao, and Feng Xiaotian were the same. They were all extremely shocked. Following that, the man in white continued to attack. Every time he attacked, he had the power to destroy the heavens and the earth. Every time he attacked, he used the power of the entire universe, accompanied by the power of the rules. His body was in harmony with the Great Way, emitting an indescribable aura of the Way. At the same time, the man in white let out sounds of the Way, explaining the Great Way to everyone with every attack he made. He was passing on the laws of the world. He was passing on the 3,000 ways and the laws of the world. The white-robed man used a unique method to manifest the way of slaughter, one of the 3,000 ways, before everyone in the clearest manner possible. Laws were the means of godhood experts. At the same time, they were the key to godhood. Under normal circumstances, only late reciprocity experts could come in contact with them. Once they grasped them, they would immediately reach godhood. If someone below late reciprocity grasped the laws beforehand, they would not be able to reach godhood immediately, but their strength would increase drastically. Unless it was someone who had also grasped the laws of the world, no one would be their opponent at the same level of strength. Poseidon, Yang Lai, and the other Origin Realm experts naturally knew that the white-robed man was passing on the laws of the world. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, so they naturally would not miss it. All of them quietly comprehended the truths of the ways, wanting to comprehend the way of slaughter. Probably only the white tiger did not become intoxicated. He stared at the white-robed man's back with his large eyes as the light in his eyes flickered. This was because the method the white-robed man was passing on was exactly the same as the one he had received in the Beast God Hall. The only difference was that the legacy he had received in the Beast God Hall contained a strand of slaughter origin energy. He had absorbed the strand of slaughter origin energy after comprehending the two realms of life and death, turning it into his own power. However, the white-robed man was allowing everyone to comprehend the way of slaughter by themselves through the evolution of the way of slaughter. If they could comprehend it, they would succeed, but if they could not, they would fail. Although they were passing on the same way, the treatment was completely different. No, this isn't the complete way of slaughter. The way of slaughter contains the two realms of life and death, but he's only imparting the realm of death. Without the realm of life, it won't become the complete way of slaughter, even if they comprehend it. A gleam of light flashed through the white tiger's eyes. He basically could not raise any doubts about the white-robed man's identity because they were in the beast fur, and the ancient winged tiger had also comprehended the way of slaughter. Without a doubt, the white-robed man was the winged tiger from the ancient times. Time passed silently. After who knew how long, the white-robed man's evolution finally stopped. Poseidon and the other origin realm experts roused as well. They were all dejected, clearly having failed to benefit. Comprehending laws was not easy. Even with the white-robed man's evolution, it was not something that could be comprehended in a single day because they were still extremely far away from late reciprocity. At this moment, the white-robed man slowly turned around, revealing a valiant and extraordinary face. Only now could everyone see the white-robed man's true appearance. However, when they saw the white-clothed man's true appearance, everyone's gaze froze. Immediately, their eyes widened to the size of copper bells, and their faces were filled with disbelief. Emo Tianyin, Sir City Lord, Poseidon, and Tianjin could not help but cry out as their hearts churned. This was because the white-robed man who had imparted the way of slaughter to them was actually identical to the past greatest human expert, Emo Tianyin. They were basically the same person. The white tiger was dumbfounded as well. He stared at the white-robed man's face as disbelief flooded his face. The white-robed man did not seem to hear their cries. Although he faced everyone, his eyes were fixed on the vast outer space. He said once again, "The way of slaughter contains the two realms of life and death. Only by comprehending the two realms of life and death can the way of slaughter reach perfection. I've left behind the realm of death here. If anyone comprehends the way of slaughter, they can inherit my realm of life when we gather in the saints' world in the future." With that, the white-robed man gradually vanished as well. The senses of everyone's souls retreated from the vast outer space under the pressure of an invisible power. Although they seemed to have spent a very long time in the outer space hidden in the beast fur, only a few seconds had passed in the outside world. Xiao Ling's sorrowful sobs still rang out, but no one was in the mood to pay attention to Xiao Ling at this moment. Their expressions were extremely rich as they continued to think about the white-robed man's face when he turned around in the end. The person who imparted the way of slaughter is actually Emo Tianyin, but the fur clearly came from the winged tiger. According to the records, the winged tiger left behind this beast fur as the key to unlocking a Ruijin seal. The beast fur was split into 18 pieces because of the winged tiger. Afterwards, the 18 beast furs were split between the 100 races, the humans and the magical beasts. How could Emo Tianyin leave behind his legacy on the winged tiger's fur? Moreover, the legacy can only be unlocked after the 18 beast furs have fused together. Houston frowned as he was filled with doubt. They would rather believe that the white-robed man was the winged tiger than accept that he was Emo Tianyin. Chapter 1587. Back then, the winged tiger divided the pelt into 18 pieces. Did he do that because he had already sensed Emo Tianyin's actions and knew that Emo Tianyin wanted to leave behind his legacy with the pelt? At the same time, Emo Tianyin's strength had already surpassed the winged tiger's. So the winged tiger did not have the ability to remove the legacy that Mo Tianyin had left in the pelt, which was why he divided the pelt into 18 pieces. Was he trying to stop Mo Tianyin from using his pelt? Gui Haidao guessed. Yang Lai thought about it for a while before gently shaking his head. If the winged tiger wanted to stop Mo Tianyin from using his pelt to pass on his legacy, he could have taken one of the pelts away from this world or hidden it in the depths of outer space instead of leaving them all here. Idao, that doesn't make sense. Whether it's Mo Tianyin or the winged tiger, they both gave me an unfathomable feeling. However, when Mo Tianyin discovered the tunnel to the world of Forsaken Saints, he was bold enough to enter the world of Forsaken Saints alone and killed all the Origin realm experts there. He even cast down a powerful seal that lasted for 1,000,000 years. Even reciprocity experts could not break through the seal. If it were not for the fact that the Spirit King's battle prowess had reached godhood, Mo Tianyin's seal probably would not have been broken through even now. All of this just shows how powerful Mo Tianyin is. He might be even more powerful than the winged tiger at the same time. Obviously, we can't eliminate the possibility that the secret of the beast pelt was left behind without the winged tiger's knowledge, said the goddess. The person who spoke was the sea goddess. As someone from the same era as Mo Tianyin and the winged tiger god, she knew many things that had happened in the past. However, none of these things were known to the people present, because aside from Shaoling, no one else was from that era. Even Shaoling was not very clear about many things that happened in ancient times due to the period when she gained sentience. There were some things that had already happened before she gained sentience. Everyone was filled with confusion. Only the white tiger stood there silently. However, he was nowhere near as calm as he seemed on the surface. Although he was young, he was still young. However, his experiences with Jianqin over the years had allowed his mind to completely mature. Through the secret he had discovered in the beast hide earlier, he had already formed an inconceivable association. This association shocked him, and even more so, made him feel disbelief. He did not care why Mo Tianyin's inheritance would appear in the Tiger Emperor of Siyu's fur. Right now, all he could think about was the way of slaughter that Mo Tianyin grasped. It was because this way of slaughter was also controlled by the Tiger Emperor of Siyu, Senior Poseidon, who appeared first in the ancient times, the beast god or Mo Tianyin. Do you still know about their experiences growing up? The white tiger suddenly asked. He looked at Poseidon in interest. Poseidon remained silent for a while, as if he had sunk into a distant memory. That era was just far too long ago. It had already been 1,000,000 years. In the ancient times, the magical beasts and humans originally occupied the Tianyuan continent. Afterwards, the winged tiger appeared and led all the magical beasts to attack the 100 races, taking over the current beast god continent. At that time, Mo Tianyin did not exist on the Tianyuan continent. Aside from me, the war god of the 100 races, Ruijin, and the winged tiger were the only Origin realm experts. Afterwards, there was a war between the magical beasts and the 100 races. The 100 races were unable to conquer the Tianyuan continent, so they began to attack the Tianyuan continent in an attempt to take over the Tianyuan continent. At that time, the strongest human was only the Holy Emperor. There were no existences that surpassed the Holy Emperor. Even the protector clans were beaten back time and time again by the 100 races, suffering heavy casualties. In the end, when the 100 races were about to take over the Tianyuan continent, Mo Tianyin appeared. He possessed strength that surpassed the Holy Emperor as soon as he appeared, repelling Ruijin and the 100 races. He drove them out of the Tianyuan continent and protected the humans. Mo Tianyin appeared out of nowhere. Before he appeared, there had never been any legends about him on the Tianyuan continent. As time went on, many people believed that Mo Tianyin was some hermit expert who had never appeared in the outside world before. A strange light flickered through Poseidon's eyes. He seemed to have thought of something wondrous as well. He continued, "As for the winged tiger, although he appeared before Mo Tianyin, there have never been any legends about him on the Tianyuan continent. He seemed to have appeared out of nowhere, just like Mo Tianyan. He possessed strength that surpassed the Holy Emperor as soon as he appeared. A gleam of light flickered through the eyes of Yanglai, Feng Xiaotian, Guihai Yidao, Tianjin, and Houston when they heard that. At that moment, they also thought of something unbelievable. I'm guessing that whether it's Mo Tianyan or the winged tiger, they don't belong to this world. They came down from above, just like you, and they're extremely close to each other. They basically appeared at the same time and disappeared at the same time. I even suspect that Mo Tianyan and the winged tiger are actually the same person through various clues and inferences. Poseidon said sternly. When everyone heard her last sentence, it was no different from a thunderclap. They all became rather stunned. Even though they had already made some guesses, they were still very shocked when Poseidon spoke of a conclusion that had overturned everything they had known for 1,000,000 years. Sob, sob. How can my master be that tiger? My master is a human. Xiao Ling wiped away her tears as she emphasized again and again. Her face was filled with resentment. However, no one was in the mood to pay attention to her. They all fell silent. After a long while, Tianjin sighed gloomily on the white jade seat. He said, I've also flipped through ancient records in the past. Although I don't know the exact details of what happened back then, I do have a rough understanding. It said that the city lord and the winged tiger had never met during that period of time, and no one witnessed the agreement between the Tianyuan continent and the beast god continent. It was only the city lord and the winged tiger who told their clansmen. This matter affected everyone greatly. Mo Tianyan and the winged tiger could actually be the same person. If they announced this secret, probably no one in the world would believe them. However, no one thought of that. The conclusion that Mo Tianyan and the winged tiger could be the same person was only a guess based on a few clues. As long as this matter was not proven, it would not become reality. Let's comprehend Mo Tianyan's way of slaughter together. If we can comprehend it, we'll be able to open a door ahead of time. Houston looked at the beast for floating in the air as he spoke with mixed feelings. Sob, sob, this is my master's way. My master said in the past that I'm an innate spirit and possess my own grand Tao of origin. It's best if I don't comprehend other ways before my grand Tao of origin is complete, or it'll suppress my grand Tao of origin. Brother Xiao, Jean won't be able to comprehend master's way either, Xiaoling sobbed. Her face was filled with sadness. She had seen her master in the past in the beast fur, and it had evoked the deep longing she had for her master that she had buried deep within her heart. Hearing this, the sea god's expression darkened. He sighed and said with some regret, I can't comprehend Mo Tianyan's way of killing because I'm the same as Xiao Jin and Xiaoling. I'm an innate spirit body that was born in the boundless ocean. When I was first formed, lightning fell from the sky. I didn't make it and almost died. However, I didn't die in the end and luckily survived. To this day, I can only be considered a half-spirit body and not a complete, innate spirit body. Chapter 1588. The blood-red sun hung high in the sky in the world of forsaken saints. It shone with a demonic red light that enveloped the entire region. It was as red as blood. The entire world was scarlet red. It seemed like the world was filled with an evil intent. Several receival protectors and an elder entered the spatial tunnel at the same time on the world mountains in the center of the foreign world. They headed to the other end of the tunnel to attack the supreme divine hall above so that they could increase the consumption of the divine hall's energy. Several million kilometers to the east of the world, there was a majestic divine hall. It stood there silently like a primordial beast crouching on the ground. It gave off a pressuring pressure, filled with holiness and dignity, as well as a majestic presence that could trample on the world, not allowing any encroachment. The divine hall was the sacred spirit hall, the place with the greatest authority in the world of forsaken saints. If the entire world of forsaken saints was a colossal empire, the sacred spirit hall would be the imperial city, the imperial palace. The Sacred Spirit Hall had a total of 3 floors. The first floor was where the ceremonies took place. The second floor was where the protectors and elders cultivated. It was divided into an inner and outer floor. The third floor was the most special. Only the Spirit King could enter it. Even Ouyang Yongwen had never set foot on the third floor because the entrance to the third floor was protected by an ancient restriction. Those below reciprocity could not enter. According to the rules of the world of forsaken saints, anyone who had reached reciprocity would become a Spirit King. At this moment, in the depths of the third floor of the Sacred Spirit Hall, there was a colossal statue that was 300 meters tall. The left and right eyes of the statue had been shattered, and there was a clear sword slash at the corner of each eye. Through the empty eyes of the statue, one could see a door that shone with 7-colored light hidden in the head of the statue. Behind the door was a fairyland-like world of mountains and rivers that was filled with origin energy. This was a miniature world. It was not very large, only a few hundred square kilometers in size. It was even smaller than some cities. However, a figure sat in the center of the world of mountains and rivers. Strands of powerful origin energy radiated from him. He was extremely powerful, and strands of extremely sharp sword chi were mixed in with the origin energy from time to time. As a result, the origin energy that was mixed in with the sword chi was even more powerful than the origin energy that was mixed in with the sword chi. The figure was the Spirit King. He had been in seclusion for the past 3 years. He did not break through after 3 years of seclusion. He remained at mid-reciprocity, but he was extremely close to late reciprocity. Jianqin, the first time I saw you, your battle prowess was equivalent to receival, but the second time you possessed the strength to defeat Xiongzhong. The third time will be when we truly meet again. I hope that you'll be able to surprise me again the next time we meet. The Spirit King was filled with eagerness as he cultivated. He was eager to fight Jianqin again because Jianqin was the only other person aside from him who had comprehended the way of the sword. The Spirit King did not attack the Supreme Divine Hall because he knew that it would take a long time for him to break through the tunnel. He would rather use this time to cultivate and increase his strength so that he could break through the Divine Hall in a single stroke than waste his origin energy on a battle of attrition with the cultivators of the other world. As the Spirit King entered seclusion, Xiongzhong and Ouyang Yongwen were also in seclusion on the second floor of the Sacred Spirit Hall. Ouyang Yongwen, in particular, had originally remained at late returnance for several thousand years. After 3 years of seclusion, his strength had reached the peak of late returnance. He was only a step away from reciprocity. However, returnance and quintessence were breakthroughs of the same level. Only after accumulating and erupting could one successfully make the breakthrough. As a result, Ouyang Yongwen had been stuck at this threshold for the past 3 years, unable to make it to quintessence. Another 6 years later, a turbulent ripple of energy suddenly appeared where Ouyang Yongwen cultivated on the second floor of the Sacred Spirit Hall. With a tremendous presence, it enveloped the entire second floor of the Sacred Spirit Hall, causing a storm of energy to appear. However, the storm only wreaked havoc on the second floor. It did not affect the first or third floor at all. No one outside the Sacred Spirit Hall could sense it at all. The rest of the guardians and elders, who were still in seclusion on the second level of the Sacred Spirit Hall, woke up one after another. Under the shroud of this enormous aura, everyone felt that it was difficult to breathe. Their internal organs seemed to bear a huge pressure, and their backs seemed to be pressed by a huge mountain, making their bodies feel heavy and difficult to move. It's Elder Ouyang. Elder Ouyang has broken through. A returnance elder cried out. He was filled with joy. No, you shouldn't call him Elder Ouyang. You should call him the Spirit King. Ouyang Spirit King. Another returnance expert corrected him. He was also filled with joy. They were all on Ouyang Yongwen's side, so they were obviously extremely excited about his breakthrough. However, The expressions of the returnant's elders on Xiongzhong's side all turned grave. Xiongzhong also roused from his cultivation. He stared at where Ouyang Yangwen cultivated through the heavy stone door. He was extremely stern as he clenched his fists tightly. Without saying anything else, he continued his cultivation. Xiongzhong was weaker than Ouyang Yangwen, but they were both late returnants experts after all. Even if he was weaker, there was a limit. Xiongzhong had not broken through after 9 years of seclusion, but he had also reached the peak of late returnants. He was only a step away from reciprocity. Now that Ouyang Yangwen had broken through before him, he needed to reach reciprocity as soon as possible. Congratulations on successfully reaching reciprocity, Elder Ouyang. From today onwards, the second Spirit King of our sacred Spirit Hall has been born. The returnants' elders on Ouyang Yangwen's side all congratulated him, as well as a few protectors at receival. Ouyang Yangwen's white robes fluttered in the wind as he slowly emerged from his cultivation room. His rather feminine face was filled with uncontainable joy. However, he immediately frowned when he heard how the returnants' elders addressed him. He said, "Just call me Elder Ouyang in the future. I'll continue to be an elder, not the Spirit King." Ouyang Yangwen shivered when he thought about the current Spirit King's strength that was on par with godhood. If it were any other Spirit King, even if he was at late reciprocity, Ouyang Yangwen would be extremely willing to become the second Spirit King of the Sacred Spirit Hall. However, even if he had reached reciprocity and could become the Spirit King according to the rules, he dared not accept the title at all. Although Ouyang Yangwen was extremely confident in his own strength, he only displayed it to the protectors and elders from the world of forsaken saints. Even if he was a dragon, he would need to remain coiled before the current Spirit King. The protectors and elders were all stunned by Ouyang Yangwen's words. They looked at each other before agreeing. They obviously understood Ouyang Yangwen's intentions. The current Spirit King was just too powerful. Even if a new reciprocity expert was born, they would not be bold enough to stand on the same level as the current Spirit King. This was the deterrence of the current Spirit King. Although the Spirit King had never oppressed them, they knew that the Spirit King was not a soft-hearted person. As a result, not only did the current Spirit King possess an extremely great deterrence to the protectors and elders, but he also made them feel a deep sense of dread and some respect. What's the situation in the other world? Has the divine hall blocking the tunnel been smashed open? Ouyang Yangwen asked in an unquestionable tone. Elder Ouyang, we've never stopped attacking the divine hall in the past 9 years, but it's all for naught. We haven't made any progress at all. The tunnel is still blocked, a returnant stood out. His tone was slightly different from before. Although Ouyang Yangwen did not dare to become the second Spirit King after reaching reciprocity due to his fear of the Spirit King, Ouyang Yangwen's status was equivalent to the Spirit Kings in the hearts of the Origin realm experts. Ouyang Yangwen's face immediately turned cold when he heard that. He said softly, "Humph, you haven't even smashed through a divine hall in 9 years. What a bunch of trash." With that, Ouyang Yangwen left with a swing of his sleeve. The expressions of the protectors and elders on the second floor of the Sacred Spirit Hall all became very ugly after Ouyang Yangwen's departure. Although Ouyang Yangwen was more powerful than them, they were still Origin realm experts after all. However, Ouyang Yangwen had called them trash without giving them any face, which made all of them feel resentful. This was because even the Spirit King had never insulted them like that in all the years he had reigned. "Humph, Elder Ouyang sure is haughty. He's only just reached reciprocity, yet he's already looking down on us," Cheng Jingyun snorted coldly. "It won't be long before Elder Xiong reaches reciprocity as well," Gongming, she said with a heavy voice. He was very displeased with Ouyang Yangwen as well. At the same time, he and Cheng Jingyun were both on Xiongzhong's side. Although the other receival protectors all felt resentful, they did not dare to express it directly like Gongximing and Cheng Jingyun. They could only suppress their resentment deep inside. At the peak of the World Mountain, a figure flew over from afar at lightning speed. Not only was the World Mountains the tallest mountain range in the world of Forsaken Saints, but they were also one of the most dangerous places in the world of Forsaken Saints. Even receival experts needed to be careful if they wanted to reach the top. However, the figure in the distance directly charged towards the peak of the mountain without any fear. Powerful bolts of lightning struck down along the way, and terrifying spatial cracks appeared as well. However, none of that could stop that person's speed at all. He either dodged them cleverly or casually unleashed a resplendent and powerful streak of sword light, killing all the dangers that came from all directions. A while later, the figure arrived at the top of the World Mountains. To no surprise, he was Ouyang Yongwen, who had just reached reciprocity. Ouyang Yongwen had always been prideful, but after suffering 2 setbacks on the Tianyuan continent, he returned to the world of Forsaken Saints in a horrible shape in the end. If there were people on the Tianyuan continent who were far more powerful than him, he would not have cared so much. However, there was no one on the Tianyuan continent who could catch his attention. Ouyang Yongwen was unable to accept that he had been beaten to a pulp before all the elders and protectors from the world of Forsaken Saints. As a result, Ouyang Yongwen hated the people of the Tianyuan continent very much. He was tempted to personally wipe out all the people from the Tianyuan continent. Only then could he vent his anger. As a result, Ouyang Yongwen had rushed over as soon as he broke through. Chapter 1589. Ouyang Yongwen strode through the tunnel. Although he did not move quickly, he crossed a very large distance with each step. As he advanced, his presence steadily climbed. The sword in his hand erupted with a powerful sword chi, causing the entire tunnel to gently tremble. During these 9 years, the tunnel continued to strengthen. The tunnel was constantly being strengthened as well. The tunnel was now strong enough to support the passage of reciprocity experts. Even if reciprocity experts fought in there, it would be very difficult for them to destroy it. Ouyang Yongwen's presence became more and more powerful. It had already reached its peak. This was the place where he would display his peak strength for the first time since reaching reciprocity. Several Origin Realm experts from the world of Forsaken Saints constantly attacked the Supreme Divine Hall at the end of the tunnel. They immediately stopped when they sensed the tremendous presence behind them. They looked back at Ouyang Yongwen, who was getting closer and closer. Their eyes narrowed before they all clasped their hands and bowed at him. "All of you get out." "Leave this to me," Ouyang Yongwen said coldly. His face was extremely sunken. He swung his sword, and immediately a huge streak of light several hundred meters long shot out with resplendent light. It heavily struck the Supreme Divine Hall with devastating power. With a boom, the streak of light struck the Supreme Divine Hall. It erupted with powerful ripples of energy that wreaked havoc in the tunnel, shaking up the entire tunnel and causing it to rumble heavily. The tunnel began to gently tremble. However, the Supreme Divine Hall was so tough that even the Spirit King could only make the Divine Hall tremble when it was filled with energy. Although Ouyang Yongwen had reached reciprocity, the gap between him and the Spirit King was still as wide as a chasm. Aside from a deafening boom, the Divine Hall did not even shake when he struck it with such a great force. "I'd like to see just how much longer you can last," Ouyang Yongwen said coldly. Ouyang Yongwen said coldly. He was not discouraged at all. He stood in the tunnel proudly and began to constantly attack. He used his full strength every single time, as if he wanted to vent all his hatred for the Tianyuan continent on the Divine Hall before him. All the Origin Realm experts of the Tianyuan continent had gathered in the Supreme Divine Hall. A snow-white fur floated in the center of them all. In the past few years, they had been comprehending the way of slaughter that Mo Tianyin had left behind in the past. However, after all these years, none of them had comprehended the way of slaughter. At this moment, none of them had comprehended the way of slaughter. The attacks the Divine Hall endured had increased by several times in a single moment. Although they were not as powerful as the Spirit King's attacks, they still made everyone in the Divine Hall stern. Is the world of Forsaken Saints about to launch a large-scale invasion? They must have gathered the power of many Origin Realm experts to unleash attacks like this. If they keep attacking like this, we'll be able to last much less time, Gyito guessed. Gue Hai Dao said in a deep voice. In that instant, their consumption of quintessence power increased by several times. The tunnel is only so large. It can't hold too many people attacking at once. Perhaps someone from the world of Forsaken Saints has broken through to reciprocity, said Feng Xiaotian. Hearing this, everyone in the Supreme Divine Hall fell silent. Their faces became unprecedentedly solemn. We need to consume a mortal energy fruit every 3 or 4 years to recover origin energy. Now that the attacks have increased, we're consuming the fruit at a faster rate. If this continues, we won't be able to last much longer with the remaining mortal energy fruits. We can only place our hopes on Jianqin now. We hope that Jianqin can make it back before we break through the defensive line, or our world will be reduced to ashes, said Houston. Can Jianqin increase his strength to the point where he doesn't need to fear the Spirit King in such a short amount of time? Tianjin asked. He was filled with worry. He knew that Jianqin's talent was unprecedented, and his rate of cultivation was unprecedented. However, the gap between the Origin Realm and godhood was just too great. Could Jianqin do it in such a short amount of time? Jianqin and Shangguan Mu put on their clothes in the space created by the Yinyang Saint Rock and left the crater. Shangguan Mu directly returned to the hut and began to refine the energy within her while Jianqin sat down in an empty spot 100 kilometers away. He began to refine the yin and yang qi he had just absorbed. In the past few years, Jianqin and Shangguan Mu had been absorbing the yin and yang qi from the Yinyang Saint Rock through dual cultivation. Afterwards, they began to refine the energy within them as quickly as they could before absorbing the yin and yang qi again. They repeated this cycle tirelessly because they knew that they could not last for much longer on the Tianyuan continent. As a result, the two of them did everything they could to increase their strength. They did not relax at all. Several days later, Jianqin was the first to awaken. He had refined all the yin and yang qi he had absorbed, becoming a part of chaotic force. As a result, the chaotic Naiden in his dantian had grown slightly. Although Shangguan Mu, Uri's speed at refining energy had increased after reaching returnance, she was still unable to match up to Jianqin. She was still in seclusion, refining the energy in her body. I wonder how much time has passed on the Tianyuan continent and what the situation is like. Jianqin slowly opened his eyes. He stared at the hazy sky in a daze as some worry appeared on his face. However, he knew that he could not return just yet. With his current strength, he would not be able to change anything even if he returned. It was better for him to spend more time on cultivation and become stronger as soon as possible. Only then would he be able to stop the world of Forsaken Saints. Jianqin gently sighed. He dismissed his thoughts and continued to cultivate. His soul fused with the Azulite swords as he completely immersed himself in comprehending the way of the sword. He gradually entered a meditative state. As Jianqin entered a meditative state, a layer of white light gradually appeared around him, covering every inch of his body. At the same time, an extremely sharp sword intent radiated from him, permeating a radius of several dozen kilometers. As the sword intent permeated the area, the air and all the invisible energy in the surroundings suddenly froze before becoming sharp. Under the influence of the sword intent, they became strands of invisible sword chi. The space within a radius of dozens of miles had completely turned into a world filled with sword chi, a world that completely belonged to the sword. In the past few years, Jianqin's comprehension of the way of the sword had reached the peak of partial achievement of sword origin. He was about to reach major achievement. However, Whenever he comprehended the way of the sword, a strand of sword intent would radiate out, enveloping a radius of several dozen kilometers. In order to not disturb Shangguan Mu's cultivation, Jianqin chose to cultivate 100 kilometers away. However, at this moment, the sword qi around Jianqin increased by several times in a single instance. At the same time, the white light around Jianqin suddenly swelled as well, forming a pillar that reached into the sky. It shone with resplendent light, illuminating the entire world. At the same time, a supreme sword qi radiated from Jianqin in all directions. It ripped through space and destroyed the ground. Large swathes of spatial cracks appeared in the surrounding several dozen kilometers. The gray ground rapidly sank as well. As the ground sank, the dust that had vanished was not compressed. Instead, it had truly vanished. It was reduced to nothingness before the supreme sword qi, as if it had evaporated into thin air. In just a few seconds, a 10-meter thick layer of dust vanished from the surrounding several dozen kilometers. The only thing that remained the same was the 3-meter wide area where Jianqin sat. Jianqin's entire body was enveloped by a powerful pillar of light, such that it was impossible to see his figure from the outside. The pillar of light that pierced the sky and gave off powerful sword qi constantly changed. In the end, it gradually formed a divine sword that stood between the heavens and the earth. The illusory divine sword was so powerful that it could destroy the heavens and the earth. At the same time, Jianqin's soul strengthened at an unbelievable rate. At that moment, his comprehension of the way of the sword had finally reached the major achievement of sword origin. With the breakthrough in his comprehension of the way of the sword, his soul had improved as well. Jianqin felt his soul rapidly swell, developing from a child to an adult. At every moment, Jianqin could feel his soul strengthening, breaking through returnants like a hot knife through butter and directly reaching reciprocity. It did not stop there. After reaching reciprocity, the strength of his soul continued to climb. It rapidly strengthened as if it was endless. It directly broke through early reciprocity, mid-reciprocity, and only stopped when it reached late reciprocity. At that moment, Jianqin could clearly sense that his soul had become unprecedentedly powerful. He had never experienced such power before. If he took another small step forward, his soul would surpass the origin realm and formally reach godhood. Jianqin's strength had not reached the level where he could fend off the Spirit King during the 9 years of seclusion, but it had still increased drastically. First, his chaotic body had reached the 6th layer, and then his comprehension of the way of the sword had increased, reaching major achievement from mid-sword origin. Even his soul had increased from returnants to late reciprocity. Jianqin was able to put up a fight against late returnants experts when his chaotic body was at the 5th layer and his way of the sword was at mid-sword origin. Now he was able to put up a fight against reciprocity experts. The white light around Jianqin gradually faded. Even the huge sword condensed from powerful sword qi slowly vanished. Jianqin reappeared in the surroundings. Jianqin opened his eyes and looked at the ground that had sunk 10 meters into the ground. His expression did not change at all. With a single step, he vanished, and when he reappeared, he was over 10 kilometers away. With just a few steps, Jianqin had traveled over 100 kilometers. Shangguan stood before him in her violet dress. She had been waiting for him for quite some time already. She had reached late returnants as well. "You've broken through?" Shangguan Mu's enchanting eyes were filled with gentleness as she looked at Jianqin. Her voice was melodious and possessed a hint of charm, making people feel numb. Jianqin nodded. "I've broken through slightly, but I'm still an extremely large distance away from the Spirit King. However, my chaotic body has reached the peak of the 6th layer, so I only need to absorb the energy from the Yin-Yang Saint Rock once more to reach the 7th layer. The 1st to 6th layer of the chaotic body can only be regarded as minor achievement. Once I reach the 7th layer, I'll have reached mid-chaotic body. At the same time, I need to comprehend the ways of the world to reach the 7th layer, which is why the gap between the 6th and 7th layers is unimaginably great. I just don't know what level my strength will reach once I reach the 7th layer. Will I be able to put up a fight against the Spirit King? Chapter 1590. Jianqin and Shangguanmu are arrived before the Yin-Yang Saint Rock again. They worked together and began to absorb the yin and yang qi. Now that their strength had reached its peak, they were on the brink of breaking through. The yin and yang qi they absorbed this time would be the power they needed to break through their bottlenecks. A few days later, Jianqin and Shangguanmu had completely absorbed the yin and yang qi. They left together to undergo the final refinement, turning the power they had just absorbed into their own. Jianqin also chose to cultivate 100 kilometers away. He sat on the barren land and slowly closed his eyes. The chaotic force within him immediately began to circulate rapidly. As he circulated his mental cultivation method, the yin and yang qi he had just absorbed was quickly assimilated by the chaotic force. As a result, the chaotic force in his dantian became more abundant. When all the yin and yang qi in Jianqin's body was refined into chaotic force, his fist-sized chaotic Niden finally exceeded its limits. It exploded loudly, and the chaotic force within the Niden immediately surged out like a flood. It filled Jianqin's entire body in a single instance. In just a short moment, Jianqin's entire body was filled with powerful chaotic force. The entire chaotic Niden in his dantian had been converted into surging chaotic force as well. Jianqin began to tremble violently. His face became extremely pale in a single instance. His forehead became covered with a layer of sweat as his face was filled with pain. His body began to swell like an inflated balloon, rapidly expanding. In just a few seconds, he had become a 10-meter-tall giant. Every time he broke through to the chaotic body, he would have to endure excruciating pain that no ordinary person could endure. This time was no exception. At the same time, going from the 6th layer to the 7th layer was a huge leap. The increase in strength was so great that it could not be compared to going from the 5th layer to the 6th layer. This was because reaching the 7th layer meant that he had reached the partial achievement of the chaotic body. It was not like the previous 6 layers, where he had only reached minor achievement. As a result, the pain from reaching the 7th layer this time was far greater than before. Jianqin trembled even more violently. He constantly clenched his teeth as he clenched his fists tightly. The intense pain almost made him faint. Even his consciousness became rather blurry. Jianqin knew that this was an extremely crucial moment. He suddenly bit down on the tip of his tongue, biting off a third of it. Immediately, a heart-wrenching pain filled his heart. However, not only did the pain fail to make him faint, but it even cleared up his blurred consciousness. He immediately began to circulate his cultivation method. Tremendous chaotic force rampaged through Jianqin's body like a runaway horse. It destroyed all his vitality in a frenzy. His organs had all shattered, all his meridians had shattered, and all his bones had shattered. Even his flesh had become heavily injured from the chaotic force. Blood flowed out of all his pores, causing him to become covered in blood. It was a horrible sight. Jianqin circulated his chaotic force cultivation method as he did everything he could to heal his body and heal his wounds. He did not use the origin energy of radiant saint force. Instead, he relied on the powerful regeneration of the chaotic body. Jianqin's chaotic body rapidly recovered, but before the process was complete, it was destroyed once again. This cycle repeated over and over again. Jianqin's chaotic body constantly struggled as it was repaired and destroyed. However, every time it was destroyed and repaired, Jianqin's chaotic body would become slightly stronger. It was not just his flesh and blood. Even his organs, countless meridians, and all his bones would strengthen. As his body gradually strengthened, the pain Jianqin endured gradually lessened. The chaotic force that rampaged through his body was slowly compressed, becoming even more powerful. Every strand of chaotic force that was compressed reduced the rampaging power in Jianshin's body slightly. As the chaotic force decreased, Jianshin's body that had swelled to 10 meters slowly returned to normal. At this moment, Jianshin could clearly sense the strengthening of his chaotic force. He could clearly sense the increase in his strength. He was getting closer and closer to the 7th layer of the chaotic body. However, it was also at this moment that Jianshin felt a resistance suddenly appear. The moment the resistance appeared, the chaotic force within him stopped growing, and his progress towards the 7th layer came to a halt. To reach the 7th layer of the chaotic body, one needs to comprehend ways. I've already comprehended them, and I've even taken a small step forward. Today, I'll use my way of the sword as the key to open the door to the 7th layer. Jianshin's determined voice echoed through his head. He fused his will with the way of the sword, charging towards the resistance with an unstoppable force with his comprehension of the way of the sword. Master, we need to strip away your comprehension of the mysteries of the world on the Tianyuan continent. You need to focus on paving the way to the 7th layer with the way of the sword. If you leave behind the mysteries of the world on the Tianyuan continent, it will affect your future cultivation. At this moment, the voices of the sword spirits rang out in Jianshin's head. Afterward, Ziying and Qing Sua's illusionary figures appeared in Jianshin's consciousness out of nowhere. They were stern. Master, we still haven't recovered. With the current strength of Master's soul, we can't forcefully strip away Master's comprehension of the mysteries of the world. We need Master to cooperate with us and assist us. That's the only way to succeed, Ziying said. Jianshin did not hesitate at all when he heard that. He split his attention and continued to charge towards the 7th layer while cooperating with the sword spirits. He was willing to strip away his comprehension of the mysteries of the world. In the past, when Jianshin's comprehension of the mysteries of the world was about to reach the level of the Holy Emperor, he had been forcefully interrupted by the sword spirits. From then on, Jianshin knew that he needed to give up on his comprehension of the mysteries of the world. It was also because of this that his strength had always been increasing, but his comprehension of the mysteries of the world remained at the 9th heavenly layer of Saint Ruler. He never possessed the ability to rip open space and create space gates like the Holy Emperor, which made it extremely difficult for him to travel. He needed to borrow the strength of others until he successfully forged the azulate swords. Jianshin had an almost blind trust in the sword spirits. In his heart, Ziying and Qing Sua were not just sword spirits. They were also his saviors and masters. Many things on his path of cultivation had been taught to him by the sword spirits, so he did not hesitate at all when the sword spirits told him to give up on his comprehension of the mysteries of the world. With Jianshin's full cooperation and the sword spirits' guidance, it was obviously not difficult for him to strip away his comprehension of the mysteries of the world at the 9th heavenly layer of Saint Ruler with his soul at late reciprocity. Very soon, Jianshin felt like he had forgotten something in his consciousness. His comprehension of the mysteries of the world had been stripped away by the sword spirits. Without the existence of the mysteries of the world, Jianshin did not feel any discomfort at all. Instead, he felt like his soul had become unprecedentedly clear. This feeling seemed to make it much easier for him to comprehend the way of the sword in the future. At the same time, Jianshin used the way of the sword as a key and paved a path for himself. He had finally broken through to the 7th layer of the chaotic body, formally reaching mid-chaotic body. The fist-sized chaotic Naiden in his dantian had vanished. It had been replaced by a bean-sized Naiden. His body had returned to its normal size as well. All the blood that flowed out had been absorbed by him, returning to his body. His chaotic body had been strengthened once again. Jianshin even felt like he could endure the full-powered attacks of receival experts just by standing there without dodging or using any defensive measures. even the full-powered attacks of receival experts would not be able to harm his chaotic body at all. Chapter 1591. Early Returnants. Breaking through from the 6th layer to the 7th layer of chaotic force really is a huge increase in strength. It's allowed me to go from the 9th heavenly layer of Saint Emperor to receival and reach early returnants. Jianqin sighed. He silently sensed a strength and compared it to the origin realm experts he had encountered. Very soon, he determined his current strength. Undisguised joy and excitement filled his face. From the 6th layer to the 7th layer of the chaotic body, the increase in strength was so great that it had completely exceeded his expectations. At the same time, although his current strength was only equivalent to early returnants, there were very few returnants experts who were his opponent due to his chaotic body. Coupled with the azulate swords and his comprehension of the way of the sword, his battle prowess would be even greater. Other than that, he had gained a new comprehension of the powerful sword techniques that the sword spirits had taught him over the years. He had grasped a few extremely powerful sword techniques as well. With my current strength, I can kill reciprocity experts if I use my full strength. Even if I encounter late reciprocity experts, I might not be able to defeat them, but I can at least put up a fight because I have the advantage of the azulate swords and the way of the sword. However, these advantages are nowhere near as great before the Spirit King. The Spirit King also has a sword of quite a high grade, and he has also comprehended the way of the sword. His comprehension of the way of the sword is no weaker than mine, so he has the ability to challenge those at a higher level of cultivation, just like me. I wonder if the Spirit King has made any progress during the years I've been cultivating. Even if I use my full strength right now, I can only put up a fight against regular reciprocity experts. But the Spirit King is no regular expert. He possessed the battle prowess of godhood many years ago. I still can't defeat him even after reaching the 7th layer of the chaotic body. I'll probably need to break through to the 8th layer before I can match the Spirit King, Jianqin thought. Ouyang Yangwen no longer posed any threat in his eyes. The origin realm experts from the world of Forsaken Saints did not fear any threat either. The only problem was the Spirit King. The Spirit King was just too powerful. He possessed the battle prowess of a godhood expert at reciprocity. He was a peerless genius who was no weaker than Jianqin in terms of talent. The Spirit King was Jianqin's final opponent. If he could fend off the Spirit King, the threat of the world of Forsaken Saints would immediately vanish. If he could not stop the Spirit King, the Tianyuan continent would still be doomed. I still need to continue cultivating and try my best to reach the 8th layer of the chaotic body. Jianqin gritted his teeth. His eyes shone with a resolute light. Then he took a step forward and disappeared into the distance. Very soon, Jianqin arrived before the Yinyang Saint Rock again. He immediately frowned when he saw the black and white crystal. He, Shangguan Mu, and the evil power hidden in the Yinyang Saint Rock had absorbed all the Yin and Yang Qi in the past few years, so the two rocks had shrunk drastically. There was not a lot of Yin and Yang Qi left. The energy in the Yinyang Saint Rock is not enough for me to reach the 8th layer of the chaotic body, Jianqin thought. According to the predictions of the sword spirits, he would be able to reach the 8th layer or even the 9th layer after absorbing all the energy in the rock. However, the evil power hidden in the rock had been stealing energy from him all these years, so it was not even enough for him to reach the 8th layer in the end. It was also at this moment that a tremendous pressure appeared from afar, causing the space there to violently tremble. It seemed like it was about to shatter. As the energy in the Yinyang Saint Rock decreased, its influence on the surroundings rapidly weakened as well. Now, the world created by the rock had become more and more fragile. Jianqin turned his head in the direction of the pressure. He could not help but faintly smile as his gaze became gentler at that moment. Shangguan Mu had broken through to returnants as well, officially reaching reciprocity. Now, without Jianqin, Shangguan Mu had become the greatest expert of the 4 races without a doubt. If her battle prowess was not taken into account and only her cultivation level was taken into account, Shangguan would be the greatest among the Tian Yuan continent, the magical beasts, the sea race, and the 100 races, because she was the only reciprocity expert. Afterwards, Jianqin and Shangguan continued to absorb the energy in the Yinyang Saint Rock to cultivate. After another 9 years, the energy in the rock was finally about to dry up. It was also at this moment that Jianqin and Shangguan stopped absorbing energy from the rock. It had already been 18 years since Jianqin and Shangguan had arrived. During that time, Jianqin's chaotic body remained at the 7th layer, about to reach the major achievement of the 7th layer. Shangguan cultivation slowed down after reaching reciprocity. In the following 9 years, she only went from early reciprocity to the peak of mid-reciprocity. She was only a step away from late reciprocity. We can't keep absorbing the remaining Yinyang Saint Rock. If the rock disappears, the evil power hidden inside will break free as well. Leaving the rock can act as a seal at the very least, trapping the evil power inside, Jianqin said sternly. Jianqin said sternly as he stood before the Yinyang Saint Rock and stared at the red light inside. In the past few years, the evil power had constantly been strengthening. It had not stopped for even a single moment. Although his and Shangguan strength had increased, Jianqin was still not completely confident that he could deal with the evil power. Even with his current strength, he couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart when facing this evil power. This made him feel a deep fear towards this evil power. Shangguan also sternly stared at the evil power. She said, "Once it absorbs all the remaining energy in the rock, it'll break free as well. The remaining rock won't be able to keep it trapped for long. I know it won't be able to keep it trapped for long, but I think it's enough time. I need to reach the 8th layer of the chaotic body as soon as possible and return to the Tian Yuan continent to deal with the threat of the world of forsaken saints. Otherwise, even if our strength has increased, we won't have any chance of victory against the attacks from the world of forsaken saints. And I have a feeling that the disaster this evil power will bring us will be countless times worse than the world of forsaken saints," Jianqin said sternly. He was extremely stern as a vicious light flickered through his eyes. Shangguan looked at Jianqin and said, "The energy you need to increase your chaotic body is extremely tremendous. The Yinyang Saint Rock can't absorb it right now, and you can only consume a single violet cloud peach every 100 years. What do you plan on using to break through to the 8th layer?" "I still have many immortal tier heavenly resources that I brought from the Xianhuang microcosm on me. Although these heavenly resources need to be refined into pills to maximize their medicinal effects, and if they are consumed directly, not only will their effects be greatly reduced, but the violent energy will also directly cause my body to explode. However, under the current circumstances, this is my only hope of breaking through to the 8th layer," Jianqin said with determination. With a wave of his hand, he took out several immortal tier heavenly resources he had obtained from the Xianhuang microcosm. "Jianqin, can you endure the violent energy with the current toughness of your body?" Shangguan was worried. "If my chaotic body remained at the 5th or 6th layer, I obviously wouldn't have the confidence, but now that I've reached the 7th layer, I believe I can endure the violent energy from these heavenly resources with the toughness of my body. Moreover, these heavenly resources aren't of particularly high grades," Jianqin said with confidence. He refused to believe that his 7th layer chaotic body would be unable to endure the violent energy from these immortal tier heavenly resources that were not of very high quality. Chapter 1592. Then you have to be careful. If your body really can't endure the violent energy, don't force yourself. Although we still can't defeat the Spirit King with our current strength, we can still keep him busy if we work together, Shangguan said gently. Shangguan said gently. She was concerned and slightly worried. She knew that Jianqin would be walking a dangerous path in the future. If he made a single mistake, he would end up heavily injured. In the worst-case scenario, he might even explode and die. After all, the energy within the heavenly resources was no longer gentle. Instead, it was extremely violent. It was completely different from the energy within the violet cloud peaches. Jianchen left the Yinyang Saint Rock and arrived in the desolate land several hundred kilometers away. He then took out the Inata Tower and began to cultivate. Although he was very confident in himself, he still needed to be on guard against the possibility of his body exploding from the energy within the heavenly resources. If he were outside, it would definitely affect the Yinyang Saint Rock. However, he believed that even if he was 10 times or 100 times more powerful, he would not be able to cause any damage to the Inata Tower, even if the Inata Tower was damaged right now. Shangguan Mu followed Jianchen into the Inata Tower. She remained by Jianchen's side, silently, while feeling rather uneasy and worried. She focused on watching over Jianchen. Jianchen picked up a king of ginseng that had been growing for who knows how many years and began to wolf it down. The king of ginseng was extremely bitter. In a single instance, Jianchen's tongue became numb as if he had lost his sense of taste. However, as the king of ginseng reached his stomach, an extremely violent energy immediately exploded in Jianchen's body like a barrel of gunpowder. It wreaked havoc wildly. Under the impact of the violent energy, Jianchen's organs shook violently and all of them ruptured. The king of ginseng was extremely old. Coupled with the fact that it had reached the immortal tier, the energy within it was so tremendous that it was comparable to a 3rd or even 4th grade violet cloud peach. However, even in the immortals' world, there were very few people who were bold enough to directly ingest the king of ginseng like Jianchen. A trickle of blood flowed from the corner of Jianchen's mouth. Although he did not explode, he was clearly injured. Jianchen did not care about his injuries at all. They were insignificant to him. As he circulated his chaotic force, his injuries immediately healed rapidly. At the same time, the violent energy from the king of ginseng was slowly assimilated by the circulation of chaotic force. In the end, it became nutrients for Jianchen's chaotic Niden. Jianchen used several days to refine the king of ginseng. A few days later, Jianchen silently sensed that his chaotic Niden had become slightly stronger. He immediately rejoiced inside. Without any hesitation, he picked up a second heavenly resource and ate it, continuing to increase his strength. My chaotic body has almost reached the major achievement of the 7th layer. If this continues, I'll be able to reach the 8th layer successfully before long. At that time, the gap between me and the Spirit King will shrink infinitely, or we might even reach a stalemate, thought Jianchen. He began to work even harder to refine the energy in the heavenly resources. As Jianchen consumed the heavenly resources one by one, Jianchen's chaotic Niden rapidly strengthened as well. A year later, his chaotic Niden finally reached the major achievement of the 7th layer. It was also at this moment that Jianchen felt that the increase in strength from the heavenly resources was rapidly decreasing. I've consumed too many heavenly resources. My body has developed a resistance to them, so their effects on me are rapidly decreasing. Jianchen understood the drawbacks of consuming a large number of heavenly resources in a short amount of time. At this moment, he actually began to envy the white tiger. Due to the white tiger's special bloodline, it possessed an innate advantage, so it would almost never develop a resistance to the heavenly resources. It could consume heavenly resources endlessly to increase its strength. However, if regular people consume heavenly resources as fiercely as I do, they'll suffer even greater repercussions, even if they can endure the violent energy. It might even affect their foundation and limit their future accomplishments. However, due to my chaotic body, the destruction of my foundation obviously won't happen to me, Jianchen thought. Although Jianchen had developed a resistance to the heavenly resources, he had no intentions of stopping. Instead, he consumed heavenly resources at an even greater rate. This time he wanted to break through to the 8th layer of the chaotic body in a single stroke. Even if doing so would result in extremely bad consequences for his future cultivation, he would still do it because he was in desperate need of great strength right now. Another year later, Jianchen finally broke through to the 8th layer after consuming who knows how many heavenly resources. After reaching partial achievement of the chaotic body, each layer required a corresponding comprehension of the ways. If his comprehension was insufficient, he would not be able to break through at all. There would be an extremely great obstruction. However, Jianchen's comprehension of the way of the sword had already reached the major achievement of sword origin, so reaching the 8th layer was naturally not difficult at all. After breaking through, Jianchen could finally end the bitter days of consuming heavenly resources. This was because many of the heavenly resources tasted just too horrible, yet Jianchen had spent 2 whole years eating them. It was basically a form of torture. If it were not for Jianchen's thirst for strength and his strong will, he probably would have given up long ago. Now, Jianchen could not help but feel like vomiting whenever he smelled the heavenly resources. He would not dare to eat them for a very long time in the future. "I've finally broken through." Jianchen stood up from the ground. He glanced at his robes, which had been dyed red by blood due to his shattered core. He decisively took out a new set of robes from his space ring and changed into them. His entire bearing suddenly changed as well. At that moment, Jianchen felt an extremely great power from his body. The power was so great that it was enough to make the world tremble and the stars dim. He felt like he could collapse space with just a casual clench of his hand. Space seemed to be extremely fragile before him. "Jianchen, have you broken through to the 8th layer?" Shangguan Mu, Er's voice rang out from beside him. There was some joy in her voice. She knew that once Jianchen reached the 8th layer, he would truly possess the power to fend off the Spirit King. Jianchen looked at Shangguan Mu. During the past 2 years, his cultivation had not been boring at all because Shangguan Mu had always been by his side. She would play her zither from time to time and silently encourage him. "I've reached the 8th layer as I wished. It's just that I've consumed far too many heavenly resources, so I've left behind some problems in my body. Fortunately, these problems don't pose much of a threat to my chaotic body. I'll be able to get rid of them after some time." Jianchen smiled faintly. He did not care about the problems in his body at all. These problems were fatal to other people, but to him, all he needed to do was spend some time cultivating, and he could resolve them perfectly. Chapter 1593. Jianchen's eyes narrowed when he heard about the Tianyuan continent. He could not help but think of the familiar faces of Bai Yun Tian, Changyang Ba, Yu Huangwan Bai Lian, and so on. He and Shangguan Mu had remained in the space created by the Inyang Saint Rock for who knows how long. During that time, they had no idea about the situation on the Tianyuan continent, so they immediately began to worry when they heard about the Tianyuan continent. Shangguan Mu worried about the Tianyuan continent, but so did Jianchen. Moreover, Jianchen worried about the Tianyuan continent even more than Shangguan Mu. Not only were his parents on the Tianyuan continent, but he also had many close friends and brothers who were as close as brothers. Then let's go back quickly. Jianchen clearly became even more worried than Shangguan Mu when he thought about the Tianyuan continent. The two of them immediately left the Inata Tower and returned to the Tianyuan continent with the assistance of the sword spirits. Jianchen did not pay any attention to the Inyang Saint Rock that had almost run out of energy. All that was left of the rock was a thin shell. It had basically formed a cage, trapping the evil power inside. Although the evil power constantly absorbed the rock and could still break free when it ran out of energy, it would give Jianchen more time to deal with the world of forsaken saints while it was sealed. Otherwise, if the evil power ran out and caused trouble while the Tianyuan continent was under attack from the world of forsaken saints, the consequences would be unthinkable. The supreme divine hall at the entrance of the tunnel to the world of forsaken saints constantly trembled. With each tremble, a deafening boom would ring out from the tunnel below. The sound was powerful enough to shatter rock. As the sound waves permeated the surroundings, the rivers 100 kilometers away began to churn. They became turbulent, and huge waves rose several hundred meters into the air. It was a shocking sight. Not only did the sound waves from the bottom of the Divine Hall reach the 4 rivers, but they also reached the depths of the 4 shattered continents. They covered a small portion of the Tianyuan continent. The thick clouds in the sky were forcefully dispersed by the sound waves. The Divine Hall suffered an extremely violent attack, one that had already lasted for several years. It had never stopped. Originally, the sainthood experts of the Tianyuan continent would stand guard in the Divine Hall for 10 days, but now the Divine Hall's energy consumption had reached an unprecedented level as the attacks became more and more intense. All the sainthood experts of the 4 races had gathered in the Divine Hall now. There were even many Heaven Saint Masters among the sainthood experts. There were so many Heaven Saint Masters that they outnumbered the sainthood experts by more than 10 times. Originally, the Divine Hall, there were so many saint experts, but now that so many saint masters had appeared, the Tianyuan continent's right. The Tianyuan continent's current situation was just a matter of forsaken saints tell them how dangerous the continent was currently. Boom! At this moment, another great sound rang out from the bottom of the Divine Hall. It reverberated through the surroundings, causing the Divine Hall to tremble even more violently. It had almost been blown away by the powerful shockwave of energy. All the Heaven Saint Masters in the Divine Hall grunted. Their faces became extremely pale in a single moment as they began to tremble violently. Half of them directly fainted on the ground. The expressions of the saint rulers, the Holy Emperor, and the Holy Emperor all changed as well. They gently trembled. Every time the Divine Hall endured a powerful attack, it would absorb a large amount of energy from them. Moreover, the Divine Hall had endured an extremely violent attack in the past few years, so their recovery rate could not keep up with the consumption rate. Now, all the sainthood experts were close to running out of energy. Quite a few saint rulers had even collapsed. Although they were still alive, they did not have any energy left. At this moment, despair appeared in the eyes of many people. They no longer held any hope for this world. If it were not for the fact that there were still a few Origin realm experts in the Divine Hall, and if it were not for the fact that the Divine Hall was not a place where they could come and go as they pleased, many people would have chosen to leave already instead of making a pointless final struggle. At this moment, the Origin realm experts of the 4 races all sat around the white jade seat in exhaustion. Their faces were pale, and all of them were extremely stern. We can't last much longer. We've run out of mortal energy fruits. Once we run out of Origin energy, we won't be able to recover anymore. We'll be lost in a few hours at most. We no longer have any hope of turning the situation around, Gue Haidao said with a heavy voice. His pale face was filled with helplessness and deep exhaustion. 2 people from the world of forsaken saints have actually reached reciprocity. The 2 of them are attacking the Divine Hall with 5 returnance experts at the same time, which has increased the consumption rate of the Divine Hall. Otherwise, we would have been able to last a little longer. Feng, Xiaotian sighed. In just 20 short years, the world of forsaken saints had gained 2 reciprocity experts. This was something they had never expected. It was also because of the 2 reciprocity experts that the time they could guard the Divine Hall had been shortened. There are only 2 paths of survival before us right now. The first is to use the Divine Hall to take some people out of this world and into the saints' world. The second is to take the Divine Hall and hide in the depths of outer space. Right now, the laws of this world are constantly being perfected. The Origin energy that has vanished for many years is slowly beginning to reappear. As long as we have enough time, we can grow to a level where we can match the world of forsaken saints, Yang Lai said with a heavy voice. But Big Brother still hasn't returned. If Big Brother suddenly returns after we leave, he'll be hunted down by many bad people. I don't want to go. I want to stay here and wait for Big Brother to return. Xiaoling was the first to object to Yan Lai's plan of retreat. He insisted on staying while sobbing. My great-grandson has already been gone for 20 years. I don't know where he is right now or when he'll return, but we really don't have time. We've run out of mortal energy fruits, so we can only last a few hours at most. If we don't leave now, we'll probably all die here, Yan Lai sighed gently. He was filled with helplessness. They were already not the world of Forsaken Saints' opponent when they did not have any reciprocity experts, let alone now that the world of Forsaken Saints had suddenly gained 2 reciprocity experts. How were they supposed to deal with them? We should retreat while we still have some strength left. The world of Forsaken Saints is unstoppable, so there's no point in staying any longer. Once we have enough strength in the future, we'll kill our way back, Houston said as well. I have no objections, Taita agreed. He agreed to retreat as well. Under the current circumstances, only death awaited them if they insisted on staying. Only by staying alive would they have a chance in the future. But Big Brother, what do we do? Xiaoling sobbed. He was extremely sorrowful. Poseidon sighed. I understand, Jianchen. When he left the Tianyuan continent without any hesitation, I sensed great confidence from him. He's basically at the end of the road, yet Jianchen is still confident. I think he definitely has a way to deal with the threat of the world of Forsaken Saints. He hasn't contacted us in the past few years. Maybe he's hiding in some unknown place to increase his strength. Once he's powerful enough, he'll definitely return. But we don't have the time to wait. It's best if we hide in the depths of outer space and kill our way back when Jianchen returns. Many people from the 4 races could be heard discussing Jianchen outside the Divine Hall. Where's the greatest human expert, Sovereign Jianchen? We can't last much longer. Why hasn't Sovereign Jianchen returned yet? Has he fled alone because he knows there's no hope for this world? Chapter 1594. Who says Sovereign Jianchen is powerless here? Sovereign Jianchen's potential is so great that his talent surpasses everyone in the history of the Sea Realm, magical beasts, and 100 races, let alone our continent's history. Sovereign Jianchen only used a few decades to go from a puny saint to an origin realm expert. Now that 20 years have passed, I believe Sovereign Jianchen's strength will be countless times greater than before. That's right. I agree with that as well. Sovereign Jianchen's cultivation speed is far greater than what we can imagine, so we can't view Sovereign Jianchen as a normal person. Sovereign Jianchen has vanished for 20 years. He must be increasing his strength somewhere or finding a way to deal with the problems of the world of Forsaken Saints. I believe that Sovereign Jianchen will no longer fear the Spirit King when he returns. Right now, Sovereign Jianchen is our only hope. Not only are so many of us waiting for Sovereign Jianchen's return, but even the other sovereigns are waiting for Sovereign Jianchen's return. There's one more thing. Soon after Sovereign Jianchen left, the world began to change. The laws gradually recovered and cultivation became easier than before. Now, strands of origin energy that had vanished for many years have appeared. Do you think Sovereign Jianchen is the cause of these changes? Gradually, more and more people joined in. Not only were there humans, but there were also people from the Sea Realm, magical beasts, and 100 races. Even at a time like this, there were still many people from the 4 races who held great confidence in Jianchen. They wholeheartedly protected Jianchen. However, not everyone stood on Jianchen's side. There was still a portion of people who had completely lost confidence in Jianchen. Many people believed that Jianchen had fled in the past 20 years. In old man's eyes, you've all been blinded by your worship of Jianchen. You've lost your rationality long ago. Why don't you think about just how powerful the Spirit King is? He's a supreme expert, no weaker than godhood. Sovereign Jianchen's talent is decent, and his potential is great. His rate of cultivation is indeed astonishing, but his age is there. Even if Sovereign Jianchen is a supreme genius, It's impossible for him to increase his strength to the point where he can fight against godhood experts in just 20 short years. Don't forget that when Sovereign Jianqin left 20 years ago, it was extremely difficult for him to deal with late returnance experts. The person who spoke was a skinny old man with a hooked nose. Even though he was pale, his gaze towards the cultivators who admired Jianqin was filled with undisguised disdain and mockery. The old man's strength was not to be underestimated either. Even among the Holy Emperor, he was one of the experts. He had reached the 6th heavenly layer and was a renowned expert among the magical beasts. That's right. It's impossible for Sovereign Jianqin to reach the same level as the Spirit King in just 20 short years. As for why there hasn't been any news of him in the past 20 years, it might be because Jianqin is already in the Saints' world. As for whether the change of the world is related to Sovereign Jianqin, I won't express my personal opinion. I just want to ask, is there anyone here who believes that the world has changed because of Sovereign Jianqin? A middle-aged man chuckled. His face was filled with mockery. Although the middle-aged man was not as powerful as the old man, he was still a holy emperor, as well as a human holy emperor. As soon as the holy emperor finished speaking, cries of disbelief immediately rang out in the surroundings. In the eyes of many people, Jianqin was indeed very powerful. He was the greatest human expert without a doubt, but it was impossible for him to change the laws of the world. You're all heartless. Don't forget who allowed you to become Saint Emperors. You're actually slandering my brother for no reason while he's not here. My brother would never abandon us and flee by himself. Jianqin sneered. At this moment, a furious voice rang out. Bai Lian angrily flew over from afar with a group of people. Yu, Huang Luan, Xiu Tianyu, Dugafeng, and so on were among them. There were several dozen people, including many holy emperors. The golden-robed Nubis was with them as well. At this moment, Nubis coldly stared at the people who did not respect his brother. He revealed a cruel smile. It's all because of my brother Jianqin that you can become holy emperor. It's fine if you don't feel grateful, but now you're slandering him. If my brother doesn't come back, then so be it. If he comes back, then I, the great Nubis, will have no choice but to take back the power my brother bestowed upon you. The magical beast, old man, who was at the 7th heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor, stepped forward. He looked at Nubis calmly and said, Nubis, aren't you a little too arrogant? You're only at the 6th heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor. There are quite a few people who can suppress you here. Moreover, what that fellow said before was completely unreasonable. The greatest human expert Jianqin has vanished for 20 whole years, and this world is only so big. Several holy emperors can search every corner of the world with their secret techniques, yet there's no news of Jianqin at all. Apart from leaving this world for the saints' world, where else could he? However, before the magical beast old man could finish speaking, a small, white hand pressed against his head silently. With a bang, the magical beast old man's head exploded loudly. His soul did not even manage to escape before his soul was wiped out. This scene caused everyone's hearts to tremble. In an instant, the entire place became deathly silent. A young boy who appeared to be only 8 or 9 years old silently appeared in front of the old orc. He wore a cold expression that was completely unbefitting of his age, and he was coldly sweeping his gaze over everyone present, full of warning. It's the winged tiger. Many people from the 4 races shivered when they saw the boy. They became extremely fearful. Although the winged tiger god did not seem very old and did not speak much, he was not careless when he took action. As a matter of fact, there were even times when the winged tiger god would kill so decisively that many of the older generation would sigh at their inferiority. At this moment, the little white tiger's gaze landed on the group of beasts. It said expressionlessly, I don't care if the other 3 clans slander my brother. However, if anyone from the beast clan dares to slander my brother, I will show no mercy. All the magical beasts became as cold as cicadas in winter when they heard that. In particular, The people who had taken part in slandering Genshin before were completely frightened out of their wits. This winged tiger's killing intent is so powerful. A seventh heavenly layer, Holy Emperor, was slain by him without any hesitation. Even with the 4 races in perspective, there aren't a lot of experts like him. He'll be of great use now. Sigh, this winged tiger is just too rash. Many people from the other 3 races secretly sighed inside, but they did not dare to say that out loud. At this moment, Ouyang Yangwen and Xiongzhong stood at the front of the tunnel that connected the world of Forsaken Saints and the Tianyuan continent with 5 Receival experts behind them. They were all rather excited. I can sense that the power of the Divine Hall is rapidly declining. After so many years, we've finally exhausted their power. We'll be able to reach the other world very soon. Jianqin, I will definitely kill you this time to vent my anger. Ouyang Yangwen sneered as he stood in the tunnel. He was filled with killing intent. Jianqin is mine. I was defeated by him last time and fled. That was the greatest humiliation of my life. This time I will personally rip Jianqin to shreds and wipe away that humiliation, Xiongzhong said as well. He was rather humiliated. Ouyang Yangwen's face sank slightly. He glanced at Xiongzhong, and a cold light flickered through his eyes. He said, Xiongzhong, I can give Jianqin to you since you've helped me once, but the 2 swords in Jianqin's hands belong to me. No, Xiongzhong flatly declined. He knew that Jianqin's 2 swords were very powerful. He just happened to be on par with Ouyang Yangwen. So if Ouyang Yangwen obtained the 2 swords, he would definitely not be Ouyang Yangwen's opponent. Ouyang Yangwen's eyes immediately turned cold. He said, if that's the case, we'll fight over them with our own strength. All right, we'll fight over them with our own strength. Xiongzhong agreed without any hesitation. He showed no fear at all before glancing at the returnants' elders behind him. He called out, if we continue like before, we'll probably need a few more hours to exhaust the power of the Divine Hall. Let's get into the 7 kills formation and combine our powers. We'll try to tear the Divine Hall apart in a single strike. Whatever. I don't want to waste a few more hours. The 7 kills formation may consume a lot of power, but it's worth it even if it costs a little more origin energy if we can get the 2 swords as soon as possible. Get into formation. Ouyang Yangwen hesitated slightly before agreeing to Xiongzhong's plan. Afterward, the 7 of them immediately began to fall into a formation, fusing their powers together and erupting with a power that far exceeded early reciprocity. They struck the Divine Hall viciously. The attack was so powerful that it surpassed any attack the Divine Hall had endured in the past 20 years. It was only weaker than the attack from the Spirit King, because the attack this time had been unleashed from the combined power of 5 Receival experts and 2 Reciprocity experts through a formation. Boom! Chapter 1595. The Supreme Divine Hall above the tunnel was knocked high into the air by the combined attacks of Ouyang Yangwen, Xiongzhong, and 5 other elders. The entrance to the tunnel that had been sealed for 20 years was revealed at that moment. The deafening booms continued to reverberate through the Divine Hall. The entire Divine Hall shook violently as a terrifying force rose up from below. Everyone in the Divine Hall could clearly sense that the Divine Hall had been lifted into the air by the experts from the world of Forsaken Saints. At that moment, many people's faces paled. Many people's minds went blank, and they fell into despair. Without the protection of the Supreme Divine Hall, they would not just have to face a few Origin Realm experts. They would face several dozen Origin Realm experts and countless Saint Emperors from the world of Forsaken Saints. They had no chance of victory when the disparity in strength was so great. Let's go out and fight. Even if we die, we'll die in our homeland. Let's go and fight it out with the people from the world of Forsaken Saints. It's just death. So what's there to be afraid of? Who hasn't died since ancient times? To us, it's just a few thousand years less. We'll still be reduced to dust in the future. That's right. What's there to be afraid of? Even if we don't die now, we'll pass away in the future due to the end of our lifespan. We're just leaving a little earlier today. "There's nothing to be afraid of." A bold voice rang out from within the divine hall. It was filled with carefreeness, without any fear of death at all. As such voices rang out, the pressure that permeated the divine hall gradually dispersed. Many people were affected. Gradually, the entire divine hall was shrouded in a torrential will to fight. Even though some people were afraid and some were fearful, there were also quite a few cultivators who did not fear death. At that moment, many people from the four races had already made up their minds to fight to the death. Even though they knew it would be like moths to a flame, they still would not back down. "Haha, Jianqin, get the hell out here. I'd like to see how you're going to defeat me this time. Jianqin, I, Ouyang Yangwen, will return the humiliation from 20 years ago with interest today. That is the greatest humiliation of my life. Not only will I kill you, but I'll also kill everyone related to you. Only then can I wash away my humiliation." Ouyang Yangwen's voice was filled with killing intent. Two thunderous voices rang out from the tunnel. The terrifying sound waves turned into visible sound waves, sweeping out in all directions with devastating force. It made the river water boil and the ground on both sides shake. Even the vegetation tens of thousands of kilometers away was pulverized by the terrifying sound waves. If it wasn't for the fact that the people nearby had been evacuated, just this terrifying sound wave alone would have been enough to injure and kill countless people. These were the voices of two reciprocity experts. The sound waves were so powerful that even saint rulers would be injured. Weaker cultivators would even be directly shaken out of their wits. Two figures gradually appeared at the entrance of the tunnel. They became clearer and clearer as they steadily approached the Tianyuan continent with a terrifying pressure that caused the surroundings to tremble. They were Xiongzhong and Ouyang Yangwen. After 20 years, the two of them had both reached reciprocity. Their great strength gave them great confidence. In their eyes, there was no one on the Tianyuan continent who had the right to be their opponent, not even Jianqin. They had come to find Jianqin first, because they wanted to regain the dignity they had lost 20 years ago, and because they wanted Jianqin's azulate swords. At the same time, countless cultivators charged out of the supreme divine hall with determination. They surged with battle intent as they fearlessly charged toward the tunnel. Not only were there heaven saint masters among them, but there were also saint rulers, holy emperors, and holy emperors. "You're just a bunch of ants, yet you still want to put up a pointless struggle," Ouyang Yangwen sneered. Ouyang Yangwen sneered. He directly formed a sword with his right hand and pointed at the sky. Immediately, a huge strand of sword chi that was several dozen meters long surged into the sky. It shot towards the cultivators in the world with terrifying pulses of energy that made the world tremble. Mysteries of war, heaven-tearing axes. At the same time, a dazzling, golden light erupted from the crowd. It seemed like a miniature sun, erupting with dazzling light that illuminated the surroundings. Tai Ta charged out of the crowd with his axe in hand, radiating with a towering aura. His extremely powerful battle intent fused with the golden axe in his hand. He swung out with the axe, colliding with Ouyang Yangwen's sword chi with terrifying might. With a great rumble, their clash caused the world to suddenly darken. A huge black hole with a diameter of over 10,000 meters appeared in the sky, devouring all the light in the surroundings. It caused the world to darken. The entire region of space shook violently from Tai Ta and Ouyang Yangwen's clash. At the same time, the powerful ripples of energy reached the ground, causing a great earthquake to erupt on the Tianyuan continent that was split into 4. The ground shook, and a bottomless chasm several thousand kilometers wide appeared in the surroundings of the tunnel. Tai Ta's face changed after the strike. He could not help but stagger a few steps back. On the other hand, Ouyang Yangwen remained where he was. When the terrifying ripples of energy approached him, they were split in half by an invisible force flowing past his sides. So powerful. Origin energy really is powerful, thought Tai Ta. Tai Ta thought. His face had become unprecedentedly stern. He had basically used his full strength in the previous strike, while Ouyang Yongwen had not even used his sword. He had only sent out a strand of sword chi with his finger, yet it was no weaker than his. It might even be slightly stronger. When Taita emerged from Erjin's tomb, he was only strong enough to fight against Ouyang Yongwen from 20 years ago. In the 17 years that followed, he remained in the Divine Hall. Not only did his strength not increase at all, but he had also expended a lot of energy. He was obviously not Ouyang Yongwen's opponent now that he had reached reciprocity. "You're quite strong. You were no weaker than me 20 years ago. But now, killing you is as easy as flipping my hand," Ouyang Yongwen said coldly. He looked at Tai Ta as if he was looking at a dead man. Immediately after, a sword appeared in his hand. His entire presence changed at that moment, and he fused with his sword. His entire body turned into a streak of dazzling light as he charged at Tai Ta. He seemed to have become a streak of light, moving at an unbelievable speed. Houston, Poseidon, Xiao Jin, Xiao Ling, Wing Tiger, Feng Xiaotian, Yanglai, and Gui Haidao appeared before Tai Ta at the same time. All of them struck out together to deal with Ouyang Yongwen. However, Ouyang Yongwen's strength had exceeded everyone's imaginations after using a sword. Even with all the Origin Realm experts working together, they were still not Ouyang Yongwen's opponent. When Ouyang Yongwen's sword collided with them, Houston and the other Origin Realm experts all vomited blood and were blown away. Xiao Jin, Feng Xiaotian, Yanglai, and Gui Haidao all suffered vicious lashes. Everyone was astounded by this scene. Ouyang Yongwen was just too powerful. Even when 9 Origin Realm experts worked together, they were not able to withstand a single strike from him. "Where's Jianqin? Why don't I see him? Where has he gone to hide?" Ouyang Yongwen glanced past the Origin Realm experts from the Tianyuan continent and immediately frowned. However, a sinister smile soon appeared on his face. He said, "Since Jianqin isn't here, I'll kill all of you first, and then go find him." Heavy killing intent filled Ouyang Yongwen's eyes. He suddenly stabbed out with his sword, and it shone with resplendent light. He mercilessly swung it toward the Origin Realm experts with devastating might. However, when Ouyang Yongwen stabbed out with his sword, the space before the Origin Realm experts suddenly split open without any prior signs. A hand extended from within. The fingers were long and slender, and the index and middle fingers formed a sword in a single moment. With a flash of blinding light, a strand of sword chi shot out, receiving Ouyang Yongwen's attack with a speed several times faster than his sword. The sword chi was not large, only a meter long. Both its size and presence paled in comparison to Ouyang Yongwen's attack. Chapter 1596. Ouyang Yongwen felt chills run down his spine as he faced the sword chi that was incomparable to his strike, both in size and presence. He sensed an unprecedented threat from the sword chi as it surged towards him with the presence of death. Ouyang Yongwen felt his hands and feet become extremely cold at that moment after being locked onto by the meter-long sword chi. He could not help but feel a coldness fill his entire body. Ouyang Yongwen's heart suddenly sank. He immediately wanted to withdraw his attack and dodge, but the meter-long sword chi was just too fast. It was already too late for him to dodge. The sword chi collided with Ouyang Yongwen's sword in a single moment. Ding! With the sound of metal clashing, the powerful light from Ouyang Yongwen's sword immediately collapsed before the sword chi. However, the sword chi did not slow down at all, colliding with Ouyang Yongwen's sword with an unstoppable force. The sword chi erupted with a resplendent light, but it was actually knocked aside by the sword chi. Afterwards, a powerful force came from the collision. The force was extremely powerful. It traveled from the sword to Ouyang Yongwen's right arm, causing him to violently tremble. The sleeve of his right arm was reduced to dust at that moment, revealing his thin right arm. However, his right arm was now covered in blood. The blood had all been squeezed out from his pores. Ouyang was extremely shocked, especially when he felt the intense pain from his right arm. He was filled with disbelief. He had already reached reciprocity, let alone the Tianyuan continent, where origin energy was lacking. He was a peak expert even in the world of forsaken saints. However, he had actually been injured by a mere strand of sword chi, and the strand of sword chi did not come from a powerful treasure. Instead, it came from 2 fingers. Who is this? How can there be such a powerful expert in this world? Ouyang roared inside. His heart began to beat violently, uncontrollably. His face became extremely stern at that moment. He was no longer as composed and arrogant as before. However, at this moment, Ouyang eyes suddenly narrowed. He became even more shocked because he discovered that the sword chi did not disperse after shattering his light and clashing with his sword. Instead, it continued toward him as a white streak of light. It moved just too quickly, as if it had pierced through space, ignoring time and space. It arrived in an instant. Even with Ouyang strength at early reciprocity, he could only react to the sword chi's speed with his mind. He was unable to move his body. All he could do was watch the sword chi approach him. Spurt! The sword chi pierced Ouyang chest and continued toward the tunnel behind him. It caused the tunnel to rumble as it violently shook. Bang! It was also at this moment that Ouyang entire chest exploded. His blood turned into a rain of blood, falling from the sky along with his pulverized flesh. A hole the size of a human head had appeared in Ouyang chest. His flesh and organs had all disappeared. The sword chi from before contained an abnormally powerful and violent energy. It was so powerful that Ouyang body could not endure it. When the energy passed through his body, Ouyang body was unable to endure it and exploded. Ouyang grunted as he shot back like an arrow. His face was pale and he was heavily injured. Xiong placed a hand on the back of Ouyang shoulder to nullify the impact. He glanced at Ouyang wounds and his eyes suddenly narrowed. He stared at the hand that had extended out from nowhere and became extremely stern. Behind him, the 5 returnants elders all revealed different expressions. They all stared at the head-sized hole in Ouyang chest as disbelief filled their faces. Ouyang was already the spirit king of the world of forsaken saints. He was an existence that stood at the very apex of the world of forsaken saints. This was because reciprocity was the limit of cultivation in the history of the world of forsaken saints. No one had ever broken through to godhood, so reciprocity experts were the sovereigns of a world. Yet now, this sovereign had actually been injured in a single clash. He did not even know who had injured him. All of them were greatly shocked by this sight. They all shivered in fear. Everyone on the side of the Tianyuan continent was stunned. Many of their eyes had widened as they stared at the hand that had extended out from nowhere with shock, disbelief, and a sliver of hope. Poseidon, Houston, Taita, and all the other Origin Realm experts were the same. At that moment, no one paid any attention to Ouyang. They all stared at the hand as if it had become the only thing in the world. It's Big Brother. I knew Big Brother would come back. Xiao Ling was the first to return to her senses. She cried out in joy as she clapped and jumped around in the air. She was extremely happy. At the same time, the White Tiger and Xiao Jin learned who the owner of the hand was as well. They immediately became overjoyed. One of them was a winged tiger with a sharp sense of smell, while the other had fused with a droplet of Jianshin's essence blood, so they were extremely familiar with Jianshin's presence. Big Brother? Aye, is it Jianshin? The other Origin Realm experts and the sainthood experts of the 4 races all heard Xiao Ling's voice clearly. All of them became stunned before disbelief flooded their faces. Just the sword chi from his finger had heavily injured Jianshin, who was invincible in their eyes. Was this really Jianshin's doing? To all of their knowledge, Jian Chun was nowhere near as powerful as he was now. Even after 20 years, it was impossible for him to become so powerful. At this time, the space where the hand was began to expand rapidly. Under the nervous and expectant gazes of everyone, it quickly condensed into a space door. A young man in a white robe with 2 swords on his back walked out. Beside him stood a woman in a purple dress with a guqin in her arms. She was a peerless beauty. To no surprise, the 2 of them were Jianqin and Shangguan. It's Sovereign Jianqin. Sovereign Jianqin has returned. As Jianqin and Shangguan appeared before everyone, all the people on the side of the Tianyuan continent cried out. Their faces were filled with excitement and joy, as if they had just escaped from death. Jianqin, how is it possible for it to be you? On the other side, Xiongzhong cried out as his eyes widened. He refused to believe that the mysterious expert who had heavily injured Ouyang in a single strike was Jianqin. This was because Jianqin was still slightly weaker than him 20 years ago. In the end, he had only managed to defeat him by a hair's breadth because of his great endurance and recovery. However, 20 years later, he had broken through to reciprocity. Jianqin's world did not possess origin energy, so logically speaking, he should not have made any progress at all. How had he suddenly become so powerful? Ouyang took out a pill from his space ring and swallowed it painfully. His wounds immediately healed up, and even new flesh grew out of the wound on his chest. He also stared at Jianqin in shock. He had come here to avenge himself. After reaching reciprocity, he did not take Jianqin seriously at all. However, he had never thought that reality would be so cruel. He had actually been heavily injured in a single strike by someone he had never taken seriously. He was unable to accept this reality. P.S. The sword god's ranking on the index is not bad, but the sales are not ideal. It's extremely bad. This is due to many people reading pirated copies. Xiao hopes that more people will support the original version. Only by reading the original version can they support the author. The original version is not expensive either. It's less than 10 cents per chapter, so it's less than $3 per month. If you really like the Sword God, if you really are willing to support Xiaoyao's writing, please spend 10 cents per day on the books you like. Chapter 1597. Impossible, impossible. This is definitely impossible. 20 years ago, you were not even as strong as me, barely at late returnance. It's impossible for you to become so powerful in just 20 short years, Jianqin said with a frown. Ouyang stared fixedly at Jianqin. Uncontainable shock and astonishment filled his eyes. Were you hiding your strength in the past? Ouyang asked again. He became extremely stern. He refused to believe that someone could increase their strength so drastically in just 20 short years in an environment without origin energy. This rate of increase was just too shocking. Even the greatest genius in the history of their world of Forsaken Saints, the Spirit King, would not be able to cultivate so quickly. Sob, 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 Big Brother, you finally returned. Xiao Ling knew that Big Brother would definitely return. Many of them said that Big Brother had abandoned us and fled to the Saints' world. Xiao Ling arrived beside Jianqin as she sobbed. She hugged Jianqin's arm tightly as she sobbed. The expressions of all the people who had said that Jianqin had abandoned them and fled to the Saints' world changed when they heard Xiao Ling's words. They were filled with regret and uneasiness. They were afraid that Sovereign Jianqin would really pursue the matter. After all, what they had said before was an act of great treason. They had slandered a sovereign who had once helped them. Jianqin looked at Xiao Ling gently. His eyes were filled with uncontainable love. He said, Xiao Ling, Big Brother will never abandon you. It's been hard on you all these years. Leave the rest to me. Xiao Ling nodded firmly. She stared at Ouyang furiously and said angrily, Big Brother, that bad guy is so wretched. He injured Brother Xiao Jin and all of us, and he even wanted to kill us. You have to teach him a lesson for us." Jianqin rubbed Xiaoling's head and said gently, "Don't worry, Xiaoling. I definitely won't let Ouyang Yangwen go. I'll teach him a lesson right now." With that, Jianqin slowly raised his head as well. He stared at Ouyang Yangwen coldly, as cold killing intent radiated from him without any attempt to hide it. After ingesting an extremely precious healing pill, Ouyang Yangwen's wounds had mostly healed. The flesh on his chest had regenerated. The moment Jianqin looked over, Ouyang Yangwen's heart immediately tightened. He said with a deep voice, "In just 20 years, it's impossible for his strength to increase to a level where we can't resist him. The power he used earlier definitely doesn't belong to him. Although I don't know where he obtained it from, it definitely won't last for long. It'll be gone once it's used up. Let's get into formation and use the 7 kills formation against him. However, the power definitely doesn't belong to him. Let's use the 7 kills formation to combine our powers and waste away the power that doesn't belong to him." Xiongzhong agreed with Ouyang Yangwen. He did not believe that Jianqin could really increase his strength to such a level in such a short amount of time because it was just too unbelievable. Xiongzhong and Ouyang Yangwen worked together once again. They formed the 7 kills formation with the 5 returnants elders behind them. Although Xiongzhong and Ouyang Yangwen were mortal enemies, Jianqin's strength made them all shiver in fear. Under these circumstances, the two of them cast aside their personal grievances without any hesitation and worked together. With the formation, the 7 returnants and reciprocity experts from the world of Forsaken Saints immediately fused their powers together. They erupted with a surging might. Just the presence alone was enough to cause space to collapse and the ground to sink. At that moment, the entire world seemed to tremble in fear. The presence was just too powerful. It had completely exceeded early reciprocity and reached mid-reciprocity. It had completely exceeded the limits of what the world could endure. 7 powers as one condensed the 7 kills sword. The 7 origin realm experts called out together. They were all extremely stern. At that moment, origin energy surged out from their bodies without holding back at all. Through the formation, a 30-meter-long blood-red sword qi condensed above their heads. It shone with a demonic red light and gave off shocking pulses of energy. It directly ripped through space, causing huge cracks to appear in the surroundings. At that moment, the entire world darkened. The sun lost its color, and the stars no longer flickered. The entire sky was filled with cracks in space. It was a shocking and terrifying sight. All the origin realm experts on the Tianyuan continent became extremely stern. They could clearly sense just how terrifying the power within the blood-red sword qi was. It was truly devastating, and if the energy within it erupted, the entire Tianyuan continent would be reduced to nothing. You're responsible for protecting the Tianyuan continent," Jianqin said with a deep voice. Jianqin growled. His gaze was extremely cold as his killing intent toward Ouyang Yangwen and the others became even more intense. The Tianyuan continent was so fragile. Even a battle between the Holy Emperor and the Holy Emperor was enough to heavily injure the continent, let alone when the 7 origin realm experts worked together. If the power of the attack erupted here, it would definitely be the end of the world for the Tianyuan continent. Shangguan Mu also understood the severity of the situation. Without any hesitation, she immediately sat down in the air as her slender fingers rapidly strummed the zither. She did not want to use her zither to control the souls of the origin realm experts from the world of Forsaken Saints. Her strength had increased drastically, reaching mid-reciprocity, but the people before her were not weak either. There were 5 returnance experts and 2 reciprocity experts. It was not impossible for her to control the souls of 7 origin realm experts, but it was impossible for her to do so in a single moment. She needed time to charge up, and she clearly did not have enough time right now. As a result, she used another method. As she strummed the zither, Huge spatial ripples appeared in the air. Every single ripple was several dozen meters thick and endless in length. From afar, they seemed like the strings of a zither that had been enlarged countless times. These spatial ripples, which were like zither strings, quickly spread into the distance. Finally, they formed a huge circle, enveloping the space within a radius of 10,000 miles. It was as if it had formed a prison, encircling the land within 10,000 miles. It was as if this place had become two different worlds. At the same time, the 7 Origin Realm experts used the 7 Kills formation. The blood-red sword Qi condensed from their power shot toward Genshin with lightning-like speed. It surged with devastating power. A terrifying pressure permeated the surroundings, causing many sainthood experts on the side of the Tianyuan continent to vomit blood. Even the Holy Emperor struggled to protect himself under the pressure. Chapter 1598. The demonic, blood-red sword Qi had been created by Ouyang Yangwen and the other Origin Realm experts through a formation. It possessed boundless power and could easily destroy the world. But when the sword Qi condensed from Genshin's finger stabbed into it, the sword Qi began to rapidly melt away from the inside. In the blink of an eye, the sword Qi that seemed extremely solid before began to show signs of dispersing. Boom! In the next moment, with a boom, the blood-red sword Qi immediately exploded, radiating with intense red light. Terrifying energy, ripples, formed strands of sharp sword Qi that shot out in all directions. They were densely packed, covering the entire sky. Genshin swung his right hand, and a huge strand of sword Qi suddenly condensed. He directly swept it through the space before him. The attack seemed nothing special, and it did not erupt with particularly powerful pulses of energy, but it was unstoppable. Wherever the sword Qi passed by, all the energy and scattered sword Qi would be dispersed, preventing the energy from harming the people behind him. At the same time, the Origin Realm experts from the Tianyuan continent worked together to create an energy barrier. They blocked the remaining ripples of energy so that the cultivators from the Tianyuan continent would not be affected. Genshin could only protect a small area from the shockwaves. He was unable to stop all the energy from the explosion of the sword Qi. In the other 3 directions, the terrifying shockwaves and strands of sword Qi wreaked havoc on the Tianyuan continent. It spread out into the distance at an extremely fast speed. Wherever it passed, the void trembled and shattered, and large cracks began to appear. The Tianyuan continent below collapsed in a single moment. A bottomless chasm appeared as the entire continent shook violently. Only when the shockwaves reached 10,000 kilometers away did Shangguanmu's barrier stop them. However, the continent had completely vanished in that region. A bottomless chasm had appeared. Ouyang Yangwen and the other Origin Realm experts all paled. They all grunted as they staggered backwards. The 5 Returnance elders could not help but vomit blood as shock filled their faces. This is impossible. Ouyang Yangwen and Xiongzhong both stared at Genshin in a daze. Disbelief filled their faces. They could clearly sense the power of laws that belonged to the way of the sword from this clash. The power was nowhere near what it had been 20 years ago. It was no weaker than the Spirit King. Whether it's Genshin's strength or comprehension of the way of the sword, they've both increased by a lot compared to 20 years ago. Is this his true strength? He's not relying on external help? Xiongzhong stuttered. He felt like he was about to suffocate when he reached this conclusion. Genshin's strength had actually become so great. It was just too terrifying. In particular, when he saw how composed Genshin was, he found it even more difficult to connect him to the battle from 20 years ago when he barely managed to do so. Let's retreat. Ouyang Yangwen immediately made up his mind and gave the order to retreat without any hesitation. Genshin had blocked the 7 Kills formation that the 7 of them had cast together. So how are they supposed to fight against Genshin? Let's go. Let's return to the world of forsaken saints. Xiongzhong gave the order at the same time. Immediately, he and Ouyang Yongwen returned to the tunnel in horrible shape with the 5 returnant's elders. They returned to the world of forsaken saints as quickly as possible. Big brother, don't let them go. They're bad people. They'll start all over again once they return. Xiaoling, frantically, said from behind. She had already become extremely resentful of Ouyang Yongwen. Not only had Ouyang Yongwen injured all the Origin Realm experts on the Tianyuan continent, but he had also heavily injured her brother, Xiao Jin. Jianqin coldly watched them leave. He did not pursue them. When he heard Xiaoling's frantic words, he gently shook his head and said, "Don't worry, Xiaoling. I'll avenge you, but the battlefield can't be on our Tianyuan continent, or the Tianyuan continent will be destroyed even if I kill them. Brother, you finally returned. I thought I wouldn't be able to see you again." A sobbing and joyful voice rang out from the crowd. Bai Lian charged out of the crowd and arrived beside Jianqin as quickly as she could. She was filled with the joy and excitement of surviving a disaster. Afterward, Yu Yu, Huang Wan, newbies, Xiu Tianyu, Qin Xiao, and so on, all the people Jianqin was familiar with emerged from the crowd as well. They were all excited as they smiled at Jianqin. To no surprise, Shangguan Jian, Xiao Qian, and Xiao Yu were among them. Yu Yu glanced at Shangguan Mu, from time to time. The light in her eyes flickered with mixed feelings before she gently sighed inside. At that moment, no one could understand what she was feeling. Aside from joy, she also felt bitterness. Jianqin comforted Bai Lian before slowly glancing past everyone. He sternly said, "The world of forsaken saints is extremely powerful. Even though Mu, and I have become much stronger in the past few years, stopping them won't be easy. Not to mention, they have the unfathomable Spirit King as well. As a result, Mu, and I need to hurry to the world of forsaken saints immediately and heavily injure them before they can make sufficient preparations. We'll set up the battlefield in the world of forsaken saints. Because of the war, the Tianyuan continent has already been torn apart. It's time for the world of forsaken saints to pay a price." "Jianqin, let us go with you," Houston said firmly. "Uncle Xiao, it's all thanks to your protection that the Tianyuan continent has been able to last until now. Just leave the rest to me and Mu." Jianqin said with a gentle gaze. He had always felt gratitude towards Houston. Even though his strength had increased, Houston was still one of the people he respected the most. "Great-grandson, you have to be careful. The Spirit King is very powerful. He possessed the strength to fight against godhood experts 20 years ago. I wonder if his strength has increased after 20 years. If you can't defeat him, don't try to force yourself. Retreat as soon as possible," Yonglai said. He was filled with joy and pride. Jianqin nodded. His gaze paused on Shangguan Aojian for a while before entering the tunnel with Shangguan Mu. Chapter 1599. Over a dozen Receival protectors stopped at the top of the world mountains in the world of forsaken saints. They chatted idly as they stared at the tunnel from time to time. "Elder Ouyang told us to wait here for orders 3 days ago. He, Elder Xiongzhong, and 5 other elders entered the spatial tunnel to attack the temple. It's been 3 days. Has the temple blocking the other world entrance still not been breached?" "Yes," a middle-aged man in golden robes asked. Although Xiongzhong and Ouyang Yongwen had already reached reciprocity and were no longer elders, the 2 of them were willing to remain elders out of respect for the current Spirit King. As a result, everyone still referred to the 2 of them as elders in the world of forsaken saints and not Spirit Kings. Even though that was the case, they were still referred to separately from the other 5 elders. "Since Elder Ouyang has told us to wait here, the divine hall must be broken through soon. Let's wait patiently. Once the divine hall is broken through, Elder Ouyang will definitely send a message to us," said another Receival protector. He was an old man who seemed nothing special. However, his eyes were extremely deep and seemed to possess the vicissitudes of life. Clearly, he had lived for a very long time already. Elder Ouyang and Elder Xiongzhong have both reached reciprocity. Either one of them can flatten the other world if they take action. Telling us to wait here is just to clean up the mess, said a middle-aged man in a red robe. The person who spoke was a middle-aged man in red robes. He had a head of fiery red hair, and he played with the leaping flames on his finger. Clearly, he was an Origin Realm expert with the attribute of fire. The other Origin Realm experts all agreed with what the red-robed man had said. Although the other world had forced them back, it was still nothing in the eyes of the world of Forsaken Saints. Once Origin Realm experts appeared, no one could contend against them. As Receival experts, they could only clean up the mess. At this moment, the tunnel up ahead suddenly became extremely turbulent. Violent streams of energy surged out, surging into the world of Forsaken Saints and out of the world mountains. In the end, they were shattered by the spatial cracks around the world mountains and the bolts of lightning with shocking might. The Origin Realm protectors all stopped talking as well. All of them stared the tunnel. An invisible energy permeated their surroundings, blocking the streams of energy that surged out of the tunnel. It was unable to harm them at all. The Divine Hall on the other side must have been broken through, which is why the tunnel is acting strangely, many people thought. Such thoughts emerged in the minds of many people. They were even prepared to receive the order at any time and then enter the spatial passage. The streams of energy wreaking havoc in the tunnel became even more violent. Gradually, the Origin Realm protectors frowned. This was because the energy in the tunnel today was several times more powerful than before. They could even clearly sense that there seemed to be some other presence mixed in with the streams of energy. The presence was extremely powerful, to the point where it made them feel surprised. Boom! It was also at this moment that a heavy sound suddenly rang out from the tunnel. Immediately, an extremely powerful pulse of energy leaked out, causing the expressions of the protectors to change drastically. They immediately retreated as quickly as they could. A few figures shot out from the tunnel like arrows. They moved so quickly that only a blur could be seen. They whistled through the air as powerful pulses of energy radiated around them. To no surprise, these people were Ouyang Yongwen and the others. They had traveled as quickly as they could through the tunnel, kicking up powerful pulses of energy along the way. This was why they had created such a great disturbance when they charged out of the tunnel. It's Elder Ouyang and Elder Xiongzhong. The dozen or so protectors who were on standby also recognized them and cried out in alarm. Their faces were full of doubt and puzzlement. They couldn't understand what Elder Ouyang and Elder Xiongzhong were doing. They actually rushed out of the space passage like stray dogs. It was as if they had encountered something very terrifying. Quick, pass on my orders. Get all the protectors here as quickly as possible. Don't waste a single moment, Ouyang Yongwen ordered loudly before he could regain his footing. He was extremely stern. The protectors were stunned when they heard that. However, their faces suddenly changed when they saw Elder Ouyang covered in blood. Disbelief filled their faces. Without any hesitation, they immediately sent a message to the other protectors. Order all the guards of the Sacred Spirit Hall to get here as quickly as possible, Xiongzhong sternly ordered as well. Idiot! If Jianqin really does chase after us, do you think the Holy Emperor will be able to threaten Jianqin? Ouyang Yongwen scolded Xiongzhong. He did not show any respect at all. Xiongzhong coldly glanced at Jianqin's chest and said with a deep voice, "The guards can set up a formation. Although they can't threaten Jianqin, they're still a force to be reckoned with. It's better than nothing. They might be able to stop him at a crucial moment. Haven't you been beaten up enough by Jianqin?" Ouyang Yongwen's eyes turned cold when he heard that. He snorted coldly and said nothing more. He had indeed suffered greatly at Jianqin's hands. If it were not for his extremely precious healing pills, his wounds would have been even more severe. Ouyang Yongwen formed a seal with his hands, and a streak of light flashed, vanishing in a single instant. Afterward, he said, I've already sent a message to the Spirit King, but the Spirit King is in the very depths of the 3rd floor. It seems to be isolated from the outside world, so we can't enter. I wonder if the Spirit King can receive my message or not." Jianqin carried the twin swords on his back as he made his way through the tunnel with Shangguan Mu at a steady pace. They arrived at the exit very soon, but the exit had been blocked by a formation, so they were unable to see what was outside. "Be careful. They've probably set up an ambush outside," said Shangguan Mu cautiously. Jianqin nodded slightly. "The only person I truly fear from the world of Forsaken Saints right now is the Spirit King. It's very difficult for Ouyang Yongwen and the others to pose a threat to me. Mu follow behind me." With that, Jianqin extended a finger and a resplendent strand of sword qi shot toward the formation at the entrance with lightning-like speed. The formation was not very powerful. Its true purpose was to conceal the world of Forsaken Saints as well as serve as a warning. It shattered loudly under Jianqin's sword qi. All the Origin Realm experts of the world of Forsaken Saints had gathered at the top of the World Mountains. Although they had lost a few people on the Tianyuan continent, there were still over 30 Receival Protectors, 5 Returnance experts, and 2 Reciprocity experts. The total number of Origin Realm experts had almost reached 40. At this moment, all the Origin Realm experts from the world of Forsaken Saints had gathered in a formation, ready for battle. The moment the formation shattered, all the Origin Realm experts from the world of Forsaken Saints took action. All of them had learnt the details from the 5 Returnance Elders and understood the severity of the matter. As a result, they did not hold back at all when they struck. They unleashed their full strength right from the start. Origin energy wildly surged from all the Origin Realm experts. They launched their most powerful attacks at the spatial tunnel at the same time. Their attacks fused together before they entered the tunnel, forming an extremely powerful pillar of energy, completely condensed from Origin energy. It charged into the tunnel with terrifying pulses of energy, heading toward Jianqin.